There are no two words greater in the world of stock car racing than crown jewel, a phrase that when added to a race makes it much harder to win. But when the stars align, the win feels so much sweeter and can make you a legend. This time, Charlotte becomes that crown tonight for the drivers of the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, where from beautiful Concord, North Carolina, the KBueno Racing Network is happy to welcome you to the 8th race of the 2026 season and the second longest affair of the year. Welcome to the World 600K. Happy that you're with us on a beautiful Sunday night, wrapping up the NASCAR Cup Series race, joining in one of our longest affairs of the season, where the points matter, lots of money on the line, and plenty of more storylines to weave into the middle of it all. Welcome to our coverage this evening. I am Kenneth Bueno. We are just fresh off of a fun off week, but not an off week for a lot of our Droppin the Hammah Cup Series drivers. They were just here in Concord, North Carolina, and this Charlotte Motor Speedway, driving the All-Star race for the 2026 season. Jaden Porter coming away victorious. We'll tell you about those details and how it all unfolded from the Open to the All-Star race and everything in between in just a few moments. But we come back to the grueling regular season, how long we've been running already since the drop of the green flag in late February from the World Center of Racing. We've already had several different winners, streaks of other drivers getting to Droppin the Hammah victory lane, and now we continue our story to build a Droppin the Hammah Cup Series champion for the second time in the series history after Zachary Hall did a walk-off effort at Homestead of Miami last season in a playoff format. It's a chase for the cup this time around. Still a long way to go, and not the last time that we will see this Charlotte Motor Speedway. It'll be the finale race in early October, and that is officially the longest event of the season at 300 laps. So this World 600K, potentially a preview for what we could see in that finale race, should the drivers that contend in tonight's affair end up moving forward into that chase and going all the way to that finale with a chance at the championship in terms of mathematical appearances. But still, lots of stories to write, lots of chapters we still need to close the book on before we get into the chase and all of those storylines that will follow from there. So the Charlotte race on a back-to-back mile-and-a-half slate tonight from Charlotte, next week from Kansas, and then we'll go super speedway racing. Talladega Super Speedway in late May, Michigan, Pocono, Phoenix, Daytona, Sonoma, into our next race of the Noble 5 in red coloring that Indianapolis Motor Speedway race in the 19th of July. That's still a long way from now, but still talking about the potential future and the importance of what is now a back-to-back mile-and-a-half schedule where the drivers will have to try and giddy up on this type of surface if they have not done so already. Let's bring you the refresher. Here's what happened in our All-Star race just last week, not too far away and literally nowhere else but Charlotte Motor Speedway. Here is our KBueno Open Challenge. These were all of the drivers trying to qualify into the main All-Star race later on tonight. Great battles all around, specifically for the transfer spot. The top three as of lap 20 would advance at the halfway mark, and then those top five at the end would make it into the main race at lap number 40. Here was the battle for third, hard into the outside wall. Stephen Harlow making a charge on Matthew Perosini. Bacallao would win the first stage. Garrett Walden and the aforementioned Perosini would move on to the All-Star race. They would visit pit road and leave the rest of the field to decide what they were going to do in order to make it into that top five coveted spot. And it was all led by the former champion of the series, Zachary Hall. There was Stephen Harlow after the early race damage from lap number 20, found a way to get his car to tip-top shape, recovered in the right way, and just ended up becoming a right strategy for him to snag a top five spot. Zachary Hall ended up dominating the second half of the race. He would end up moving on to the All-Star race, and Chuck Stevens that final spot in. Green flag for the All-Star race here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. It was Brandon Banks, Jaden Porter at the front row, and Warren Kyle Keith would make his name known early, making himself a hard pass at the front. Jaden Porter would move around, and then despite dropping back to fourth on the opening few laps, Banks would move his way by on saving strategy. Porter making his move to the inside for a second. That would just be a preview of what we saw for the entire race. A mandatory pit stop in the first 50 laps, segment 1, and some great fights along the way. There's Stephen Harlow getting right behind Cedric Hunter, getting around Garrett Walden, who would then become the oldest tire car on the green flag sequence before that 45 car went for a spill. The two-time winner this season, the Canadian, going around off of turn number 4. He would bring in a pretty pivotal yellow inside 12 laps to go in that first segment. Green flag back in the air then. Stephen Harlow making his move forward, but it wouldn't take long to find the two Titans in the point standings right alongside him, making the move inside, outside, flush 3 wide, and then we would just see one of the best battles we have seen all season long. The two best in the championship right now, side by side for multiple laps on end, and Banks was able to pull away, crossing the line lap 50, end of segment 1. He would take the first segment from Charlotte Motor Speedway. Lots of drama in the second 35-lap segment that was just all about being in the right track position. Francisco Bacalhau, one of those competitors, he'll be driving tonight, spinning off of turn 4 off the nose of Banks after he got fresh tires and moved up to the front, and then involved in more crashing behind them. Chuck Stevens and Zachary Hall involved in this big crash off of turn 2. That would eventually bring out the yellow flag inside 17 laps to go, which just weaved into the 15-lap final segment. Top 10 eligible, everybody 11th on back was eliminated, and in that final stint, it was Jaden Porter, all of him getting to the inside of Banks off of turn 2, shutting the door to the back straightaway, and just sailing off into the Charlotte night sky. Although he did have to deal with a few restarts along the way. Justin Earl with a huge crash at the exit of turn 4. There was that final restart under the lights, under the fog here in Concord, North Carolina. And no phasing. Jaden Porter, already a winner this season at a 1.5 mile track, wins the $25 and wins the 2026 Droppin the Hammah Cup Series All-Star Race. So after that exhibition race, it was truly a reflection of what we've seen this season so far in our main point standings. And after Auto Club Speedway, our last 1.5 miles, or rather our last points-paying race on a 2-mile D-shaped oval, entering this 1.5 miles race tonight from Charlotte, we have entered the top 2, of course, similar like it's been all season. Brandon Banks, a hefty advantage, now 22 points clear of Jaden Porter. That gap was as short as about 5 points. Charles Van Schaik back in 3rd, Steven Stepien running in 4th, Garrett Walden back behind them in the top 5 in point standings. What a season those drivers have put on so far, but still a long way to go to decide things, and very tight at the cut line already. Stephen Harlow only 4 points clear of Jesse Whittington, 7 points clear of Charles Stevens, and again, this is to make the chase for the cup. No longer is it a win in your in system, it is all about consistency here in this 2026 campaign. Well, let's join one of those drivers that is top 5 in point standings right now and looking to continue a rather successful opening season of Droppin the Hammah Cup Series action. We're joined by Charles Van Schaik, driver of his number 23 Ford Mustang Dark Horse. And Charles, you've had back-to-back-to-back top 10s through your last 3 points races. Obviously, that All-Star race was a bit different, but it wasn't for any points. Now it's for all the marbles. What do you take in from the momentum you've carried earlier in the season to this crown jewel here at Charlotte tonight?
Just not wrecking on the restart, on the start of the race like I did in the Open. Just trying to keep the tires under me and trying to just keep pace, keep a good pace. And long race, can't win it in the first, can't win it in the first lap. So just, people come to they want to drive aggressive or try to pass. I'll probably just give it to them and hopefully be there at the end.
Well, Chuck, we've seen you perform well at some of these intermediate style tracks before. I can recall Las Vegas, some pretty good showings there. What do you make of this Charlotte Motor Speedway and what you've seen in practice so far that could help for race time?
Man, like I said, definitely just taking it easy. During practice, you try pushing it a little bit, and then you realize it's too late, and you're into the wall, and then you're got wheel damage. So it's definitely going to be like I said, keep the tires under you and just keep moving forward and hopefully be there at the end.
All right, Charles, well, we really appreciate the time. Congratulations on all of you've accomplished so far in this maiden Droppin the Hammah Cup Series season, and best of luck to the green flag tonight.
Thank you.
That is Charles Van Schaik, driver of his number 23 Ford Mustang Dark Horse, a very successful opening campaign, and we've seen a lot of new drivers enter the fold in that offseason from the beginning of Season 1, and now this second campaign of Droppin the Hammah Cup Series action. It's been fun to watch those drivers step in, and Charles Van Schaik already has become one of those perennial front runners, now still in contention for the points lead. He's going to try to get around Jaden Porter and Brandon Banks if he is able to do so tonight. Let us take you trackside and bring you tonight's starting grid here for the 8th race of the 2026 Droppin the Hammah Cup Series season. and just our second trip, including the All-Star race, here to this virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway, where on the front row, it's a Hialeah, Florida native, Francisco Bacallao, and his KBRN Toyota Camry, a 28.995. Crashed out of the All-Star race late. He's going to try to avenge himself and capture his second career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series win, at least in terms of 2026, a winner earlier on the campaign from Kentucky. Brandon Banks on the outside, just one spot short of the All-Star win not that long ago, but he's already picked up a win this season and looking to continue his overall success as the points leader. He'll be on the outside of row number 1 to the green flag. Back in row number 2, you'll find the St. Augustine native of Warren, Kyle Keith, strong in the All-Star race, especially early on. 29 flat gets him on the inside of row number 2. And a brand new driver to the series, Ethan Thompson and his 99. A huge welcome to him as he joins us from the outside of row number 2 in 4th position. Back in row number 3 to capture the top 5, it's Alex Muscarella and his DTH Chevrolet, and the aforementioned Charles Van Schaik. Talked to him not that long ago. He'll roll off from the outside in position number 6. Richard Swavely, his number 32 Ford Mustang, starts tonight from 7th. The 43, the Walmart car of Garrett Walden, rookie driver standout, on the outside in 8th position. Capping off this top 10, Cedric Hunter, a pair of wins in this 2026 campaign, looking for another one. His last win came at 1.5 miles at Texas Motor Speedway. Sammy Harrow rejoins us in the number 42 car. He's on the outside, inside the top 10. Charles Stevens is 11th. Stephen Harlow on the outside of him, just qualifying into the All-Star race from the KBRN Open last week in 12th position. Row number 7 features Jesse Whittington rolling off 13th, and Justin Erb in his number 20 Ford Mustang. He's on the outside in 14th spot. Steven Stepien missed the All-Star race last Sunday night, but is back in action here from 15th. Kip Easley for Drinkin' Bros Racing rejoins the series as well. In regular season capacity, he rolls off from 16th place. And in row number 9, pair of cars that are just barely getting into this race, Timothy Stubblefield 17th, Christian McCrelly in his number 75 car, the first driver not to take a time in qualifying. Ray Rogers rolls off from 19th. Former series champion Jaden Porter is going to be in 20th, the driver who won the All-Star race just last Sunday. The $25 to him, looking for $50 tonight in the No Bull 5. David Duran, another No Bull 5 driver, starts inside in 21st. Row number 11 with Brad Fulham in 22nd. Final row here from Charlotte Motor Speedway, Casey Knight in 23rd. And new driver Dana Shepard, big welcome to Dana. He rolls off 24th here in tonight's 250-lap, 600-kilometer affair. Quick look at our SKMCars.com race analysis. Those 250 laps marks the second longest race of the season. Of course, just shy of the 300 laps that we will have here from Charlotte in our finale race later on this season. 375 miles, and you want to know why the World 600K is the name? Well, 600 kilometers. We're going here from Concord, North Carolina. It is Francisco Bacallao on the front row, of course, dominated one of our last 1.5 mile affairs at the virtual Kentucky Speedway. We are joined by him now. Francisco, you've got the pole. Quick thoughts here before we go green. What do you think?
Well, biggest thing I'm hoping for here, Kenneth, is that it goes a little bit smoother than Indy on the All-Star race. Got some early damage. Was mired in traffic. I don't run this car normally, so I get into an on and off rhythm. So hopefully this week, just the races I ran are a good enough preparation of what to expect.
Well, Francisco, we appreciate the time. Congratulations on pole, and best of luck here at tonight's race.
Enjoy the show.
That's Francisco Bacallao from the pole position, led a ton of laps in that Kentucky race, and he's got the points leader, Brandon Banks, on the outside of the front row. Pace trucks down. Let's go racing for the 8th time in this regular season. Green flag from Charlotte. And a step out, lap number 1 for Bacallao. Chases out in front, Muscarella. Banks go at it for second place back to turn 1. But Bacallao hesitant at first, but then just set himself free. 0.7 of a second to the second place car of Muscarella as they come back to the back straightaway to come over and complete lap number 2. Banks, we saw this similarly earlier on in the All-Star race last Sunday, and a lunge in turn 3 gets him back to second right in front of that 48 Red Bull Chevrolet. As the Valvoline car moves on by, the red, white, and blue colors chasing in a second, and now has a bit of a gap to make up. So far, setting good times compared to Bacalhau in the race lead. But again, drop back to as far as fourth in the first few laps of the All-Star race in that 50-lap segment. Everybody knew you had to come back down pit road at least once in that entire segment. However, Banks used the tire saving to his advantage through the semi-long run and got back to the race lead after just a few laps of green flag action, as everybody practically in front of him had overdriven the race car. And we know Banks is one of those consistent forces, has not finished a race outside of the top 10 this season, hence why he's got that points lead. Contact in turn 1. Muscarella getting the side draft on Richard Swavely, got thrown into the exit of turn 2. And now Cedric Hunter makes a dial up on the bottom, pivoting to the inside. And the two-time winner this season makes a dart underneath as Muscarella starts his fall off through the field. Chuck Stevens, who had barely qualified one of those last transfer spots into the KBRN Open Challenge just last Sunday, going to be rolling inside the top 6. And after some pretty performances at these mile-and-a-halfs this season through the Las Vegas Motor Speedway and, of course, through Texas and Kentucky, Chuck Stevens and his SimRapMarket.com Chevrolet trying to move forward. The driver sneaking in, but so far single file through most of this top 10. Here comes Whittington to drive to the inside. Those are a pair of teammates for the Cypress Racing team. Whittington rejoining the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series after being away for a little while from the Sunoco Cup Series' departure. And as this series got revitalized, trouble behind them. It's Jaden Porter around. Stephen Harlow goes in with him, and the first yellow comes out tonight. Only 6 lap in, and a rare set of characters involved. Not often do you see Jaden Porter involved, but his computer had crashed right before the driver's meeting had come to a close in his ride to Dente Chevrolet. Those are the exact same colors that visited Victory Lane at Talladega Superspeedway earlier on this afternoon, with Carson Hocevar getting his first career NASCAR Cup Series victory. But Jaden Porter having to start from the back as a result of that PC crash and had to work his way through the field. A very different scenario from what we saw, especially early on in the All-Star race. There's a look at the contact off turn 4. It looked like a driver got in trouble right in front of them as Porter was working through those corners and then just knocking into the side of Stephen Harlow. Those two cars going around for a spill. Here's the onboard look from Porter. We saw Ray Rogers, that neon yellow Chevrolet, getting sideways off the exit of turn 4, but not to affect Jaden Porter's movement through the corner. The car just stepped out, and as he lost traction at the exit of that final corner, stepped into Stephen Harlow and those two cars involved in the spill. So our first yellow coming out, lap number 7 of 250, and already you saw that huge gap that Bacalhau had put on from the rest of this field. Brandon Banks having to hold back, retaking second from Muscarella, who has dropped now to a race-low 5th place. And already potential takers. Yes, there is. Cedric Hunter coming in this time by lap number 7. So potential call here for Cedric to get off of the driven path so far. And for the first time, Hunter's going to make his way down pit road. A bit of smoke there coming back from the 45 machine, but no worse for wear coming down on the pit lane. And will try to get his strategy call for the first time tonight. So he'll enter pit road. Car that is just a splash of fuel in. We saw Cedric did it. Separate strategy from the field on 2 tires on different fuel calls, especially these mile-and-a-half, so we know how long these races are. So for Hunter, not entirely surprised he would take an approach like this, but of course that does mean the track position is gone as a result. Warren Kyle Keith, there's Dana Shepard, and the aforementioned Jaden Porter, Stephen Harlow, those 2 cars that were involved in that yellow, just coming down pit road for some extra reassurance. Christian McCrelly and Casey Knighton also in to repair what may be presumed damage, or perhaps just some extra fuel added to the race car. So it's Bacalhau at the front of this field, a driver who, like we mentioned, purely dominated that Kentucky Speedway race not too long ago, and a driver that beat a record for most laps led in a single Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series race. We mentioned the 196 set by Steven Stepien back at Echo Park Speedway. Didn't take that long for the record to be broken. Francisco dominating from second position in that race to lead 215 of the 225 laps there. Not too long from the distance that we have right now tonight from Charlotte. But Bacalhau already with a swimmingly good start. Talked to us about his car conditions in the practice session, and with this different power setting. We mentioned in the All-Star race how the cars from an experiment with the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series admin team and a lot of the driver base to bump up the power by 10%. So the driver's now dealing with 737 horsepower as opposed to the usual 670 horsepower you would find at these larger mile-and-a-half and over tracks. However, because of a driver vote happening earlier this week, Warren Kyle Keith, one of the series admins, just threw it out there to the driver base and asked if they preferred 110% power and that 737 horsepower package for this World 600K. Everyone said predominantly yes. So we end up with the higher horsepower numbers tonight. But because of that, we have seen these cooler conditions from Charlotte Motor Speedway result in a tighter race car. So over the course of the run, you'll see drivers skirt up the racetrack and up to 24 degrees of banking here in Concord, North Carolina, because these cars just cannot handle with the power driven and all of the downforce that they have. In the cooler track position, it just becomes tighter overall, and you have that understeer effect where the car wants to travel up the hill. You have seen a couple drivers deal with that, and of course that first caution coming as a result of a understeer race car in Jaden Porter, who will restart this race all the way back in 20th spot. Green flag restart. Lap number 10 here from Charlotte. And a great getaway for Bacalhau, not entirely separating from the field by more than 2/10. And Banks works nicely in second. Third place swimmingly goes to Richard Swavely. Battle for position behind them. It's Thompson and Stevens going out at exit turn 2. And a great quarter exit for the 99, making his first career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series start tonight. One of the brand new entrants into this series. And a big welcome to Ethan Thompson stepping into the fold alongside Dana Shepard. Those two now teammates at the DEP Racing team. Get an onboard look from our Charlie Byer photography camera entering turn 3, just hugging that blue and white line. The fundamental asset of racing Charlotte Motor Speedway is just trying to use that brand new paint on the inside of the racetrack. We've seen how it has evolved into what is semi a grip strip. We've seen drivers use the bottom line to their advantage. Big send by Stepien behind, and that white car, David Duran, making a move on the inside. That is one of our Noble 5 drivers here in tonight's race. So if you don't know what's going on, it's similar to the Winston Cup Series back in the old days of NASCAR stock car racing. Droppin the Hammah Cup Series admin said, why not, with some prize money, try to give some drivers a chance to qualify into their Noble 5 segmented races. We'll have many of those throughout this 2026 campaign. Tonight's race at Charlotte just being the second affair in this Noble 5 experiment. We had it start at Daytona earlier on this season. The winner getting $50 there, and Brandon Banks capturing the victory then, and the rest of the top 5 that followed at the World Center of Racing now qualified to win some money tonight here from Charlotte Motor Speedway. So it's Banks, Herb, Christian McCrelly, Jaden Porter, and David Duran, that aforementioned 98 car who now rolls into 7th. Whittington on the inside, and a batter right in front of them as well. Steven Stepien making a dart underneath, bottom shelf in turn 1, and has the advantage on the Sobe Chevrolet. Now stepping up high, trying to deal that dirty air, and does so, shuts the door to make his way into the top 5. So we'll keep an eye on those cars over the course of the night. And if you want a little bit more of a distinguished color for the drivers tonight, and if they are running in the Noble 5 and the distinguishing factor for them, you can look up on the horizontal ticker on your screen, that black and red gradient color on the back end of the number. You'll see that scrolling across the top of your screen. That lets you know those are our Noble 5 drivers tonight, competing for $50 in cash and a potential for Jaden Porter to walk away on back-to-back weekends with $75 in his pocket. He mentioned that he would use it for DoorDash last week at the All-Star race after winning the 25 last Sunday. So if he's able to grab 50 more bones into his pocket, chance for him to spend some more money and maybe invest that in something later. As Stepien makes a move underneath Thompson, a fight back from the high shelf in turn 1. Thompson using that momentum off of the corner to sneak through and get back into the top 5. So we already mentioned some of those cars coming down pit road early on that first yellow flag of the race. Jaden Porter, one of those, of course, alongside Stephen Harlow and a fair few others that were not involved in the incident per se, but just were so far back in track position, wanted to have a splash and go or perhaps repair some of the damage that were inflicted on the race cars in that short but very sweet opening run. And Cedric Hunter was one of those drivers already making a charge up to 11th. Again, we saw the same kind of tactics used. Hip check off turn 2 there. Ethan Thompson getting loose. Now we're 3 wide on the back straightaway. Turn 3 sneaks through underneath and under the black and gold number 42 car, the GOAT machine of Sammy Harrow making a move. And Hunter on the inside. But we saw some of those tactics used at Texas and Fort Worth not that long ago to get his second victory of the season, a driver who finished runner-up in the championship round last season at Homestead of Miami, to his teammate and the eventual champion at the end of it all in Zachary Hall in his number 33 car. Joined us for the All-Star race last Sunday, and he's not a part of our action tonight. But we'll see what this 45 car can do, and we've seen a lot of that pace from the 45 here at these mile-and-a-half tracks, and that does include a former win. There's a spinner off turn 4. Ray Rogers in trouble, trying to carry the momentum. He's around in the quad oval, and our second caution flies, lap 19. And Rogers, after a huge crash, took him out of the All-Star race in that final segment last Sunday. Bit of damage on the right front as he's involved in this most recent spill. We saw a similar near spill from him at the exit of turn number 4 that brought out the first yellow. So remember when Jaden Porter got into Stephen Harlow up the road and bringing in some smoke was that same Ryobi car. So a similar problem off the final corner, skirts up the racetrack, and Scheich with great avoidance to get around. And just a nail-on hit to the outside safer barrier. Not too much of speed to carry through, but enough for that car to be damaged on the right front. He'll surely take a visit on pit road, and here's the look from Rogers. Again, you watch that paint on the bottom end of the speedway. That will inflict a bit of that grip on the left side tires. It just felt more like a power issue. Car just stepping out. Take a listen. Car just teardropping in its revs as it was coming off the corner. That was an immediate let off the throttle and an attempt to just get that race car collected and back straight, but the 51 indeed will bring us our most recent yellow flag here at lap number 20. And again, drivers just deciding whether tires would be the right call. Brandon Banks, maybe a couple others trying to fake their way through, but nonetheless, they will stay out for the track position that is so far the name of the game for what we've seen in the majority of this top 5. David Duran moving in to the top 5 most recently. Again, one of our Noble 5 drivers. Top 2 in that Noble 5 include Duran in 4th. He's the second driver to the Valvoline Chevrolet that's up in front, running in the runner-up position of Brandon Banks in the 5. So again, mentioning the heroics of Cedric Hunter on types of strategies like these. Just a visit back down pit road, second chance at it, just a double take, as the 45 will look to splash some more fuel on his Toyota and just try to get to the length end of what could be a long green flag run if it ends up developing, which so far it has not fruitified. It's just been all about the drivers using their extent of the speed as much as they can before these yellows have come out. But Cedric Hunter, successful one of the last times we were here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. It was a very pivotal playoff race where Hunter at that time took a while to get to victory lane until here at Concord, North Carolina. And the caution flag is out. There's trouble in the back of the field, and it's former race leader James Kunkel. 9.6 seconds. Moreno even quicker, 7.6 seconds. And it's Hunter, Hall, Harlow through the restart zone. Maggio has control. Not as good of a jump from the 5-time winner in Lawson Peel. It keeps Justin Erb in control of second.
And here comes Cedric Hunter. And there's the block, but Hunter's going to peek to the inside. There it goes, the 45, and it should be a relatively easy pass. He clears Maggio for the lead. One, here comes Peel now, trying to move up into second. Cedric Hunter, who went winless in the regular season, shows up at the right time, and he's into the round of 12. He wins here from Charlotte.
The only thing I can really say to sum it up is it's about damn time.
A great night for Cedric Hunter then, trying to capture a third victory in this 2026 season. He's been very successful with these types of races where it's all about tire wear and potential strategy. And he even told us back at Texas Motor Speedway the credit he gave was to his crew chief at the time, who just so happens to be the defending series champion in Zachary Hall. So those two drivers still keeping in close contact with each other, and wouldn't be surprised if Hunter is still being commanded at the helm by Zachary Hall and giving him some pointers on strategy, but he's come down pit road every single yellow tonight. A pair of them, now our most recent restart coming in here at lap number 23 of 250. Bacalhau still not relinquishing control. He's had some solid restarts to begin this race and got away by at least a few car lengths above Brandon Banks before they got off of turn number 2. Banks had no response for the 30 Toyota Camry. We'll see what happens here on the next restart. Back under green from Charlotte. Great jump by Bacalhau. Banks follows suit. And it's everyone behind trying to make sure they can just tally in a few track position changes. Stempian makes his move, slides into 5th. And here comes David Duran. Possible chance for the 98 car to squeeze into the top 3 for the first time tonight. Hounding on the back bumper in the back end is Jaden Porter, now slipping into the top 10 for the first time tonight. First battle on the racetrack. Kip easily on the inside. Stephen Harlow to play defense. All about meticulously using these lines in a rather cool Charlotte Motor Speedway surface and similar conditions to the All-Star race we had last Sunday. Just the sun coming down, the lights coming on, and a very cool track overall, which a lot of drivers have mentioned creates that understeer effect, but overall adds a lot more grip to these Goodyear Eagles. We did see that sun pour in for just a little bit and adding some maybe slickening moments for drivers that are at the exit of corners, but so far so good in terms of track position. For a lot of these drivers at the front, that seems to be the consensus. Just keep it as much as you can. Slithering on the high side, Cedric Hunter, what a drive at the exit of turn 2 on the back straightaway, getting around easily. Now looking for a 2-for-1 on Jaden Porter, the winner at Las Vegas. And there's contact, and Hunter's sideways again. Similar place where he was at the All-Star race last Sunday. And around he goes. Third caution comes out. And it's this Hello Kitty Toyota Camry. Similar place. Similar trouble back-to-back weeks. Well, didn't expect to see that again for Cedric Hunter. Just around at the exit of turns 3 and 4. And it was assistance to the 6th machine of Stephen Harlow. So you'll watch this bright pink Toyota Camry moving in on the back straightaway, makes the move on Jaden Porter, and just nudges the rear end of Stephen Harlow, gets sideways on his own accord, smacks the outside wall, no one there to greet him. And the other drivers don't get involved, stayed on the inside, pinpointing to the blue line. But Cedric Hunter, the most recent driver involved in this spill, just giving that nudge to the 6th machine of Harlow. Here's another look from Cedric Hunter. And just watch this run. You've seen a lot of drivers use that high side to get around drivers on the bottom. Hunter, just one of those drivers to do it. Late on the brakes, nudging into the rear end. What a save by Harlow. But Hunter on the other end just could not wrangle this Toyota Camry, and the car goes sideways for a spill, coming to the dead stop at that transition of the 25 degrees of banking here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And this time, after Hunter has come down pit road a few more times for some fuel-saving concerns and some extra splashes of fuel, now this bright pink car will have to spend some extended time on the pit lane for some damage repair. So we'll be under the yellow flag again, and we'll just roll around behind the iRacing official pace car, try to get another look and get another restart, as this race has gone, for the most part, yellow flag. We've seen some rather uncharacteristic early yellows here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and more often than not, especially on these 1.5 miles, we've seen a lot of clean racing. Drivers going on long green flag runs. We've seen green flag pit stops become a big part of the conversation. Just hasn't been the case here in this early run from 27 laps deep. So keep an eye on the drivers if they end up behaving better over the course of this run, and if we end up having more chaos down the stretch. Let's get a moment to talk with one of our drivers that has entered the top 5 here under this most recent caution, and glad to be rejoined by Steven Stepien. Steven, we missed you last week at the All-Star race right here from Charlotte, but we know $25 was at stake last Sunday. More points are available tonight in order to work for a championship. So as you've come into this race from practice, what have you noticed about the way this car feels? And through these long green flag runs, at least as we've seen them, what have you noticed?
It's just, I don't even know what to say. The 110 horsepower is an adjustment. I'm trying to figure out how this thing drives. Obviously, we really haven't had too much of a long green flag run, but I'm just happy I gained 10 positions and got back up towards the front so I can kind of relax for a little bit, give us some green flag runs. But so far, it's not bad. I guess I just need to run some more laps. I haven't really run much with this package, so see how the rest of the night goes.
So you are technically the most recent winner. We know we crowned Jaden Porter the All-Star winner, but you're the most recent winner in a points-paying capacity at Auto Club Speedway. So any way you can carry some of that momentum from Southern California, bring it into one of our longest races of the season?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm looking, had a good season so far. Got a couple of wins under my belt. Looking to keep that momentum going and see what we can do here. I mean, Charlotte's always been pretty good for me. I just don't know how it's going to play out with this 110 once it gets a little bit cooler and the lights come on. Sun's going down, so we'll see what happens.
All right, Steven, we appreciate the time and best of luck on the next restart.
Thanks, buddy.
Steven Stepien from Bethune, Massachusetts, the most recent winner in our points-paying affair. Here from the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, won the Southern California 300 at Auto Club Speedway a few weeks ago. Green flag back in the air. What a jump from Bacalhau. Spreads out in front by at least 2 car lengths on Brandon Banks, similar to what we've seen for most of the restarts tonight. Swavely under fire by David Duran. Plants on the outside. Looks for a crossover under the yellow Ford Mustang. Can't complete it on the prancing horse down the straightaway. And a pair of teammates back in 5th and 6th. Stepien looking underneath his teammate Muscarella as Jaden Porter snags the top 10 and he's back in the top 6. Similar to what we saw Porter do in the All-Star race, just made position after position, and Las Vegas was no different. A driver who could weave his way through the field, dominating clean air, and this Chili's car so far unstoppable. He hasn't really lost the race in this paint scheme, slithering through the gap at the exit of turn 2, and just nudging his way into 3 with a chance to throw it under Alex Muscarella in a bid for 5th place off turn 4. Meanwhile, Duran looking on top. Richard Swavely from the top shelf, that white Chevrolet, taking a look in the podium for the first time tonight. The rookie driver makes his way through, while Porter tries to dial up the bottom shelf and can't quite get to the blue paint on the bottom. Still side by side for 5th. And now a chance for Stepien to respond on the outskirts of turn 4. Yellow and black Chevrolet at the top. Black, white, and red Chevrolet on the bottom. And Stepien makes his way to 6th as Muscarella holds on to his defensive ball. And the DTH teammates will hold on for some top 6 positioning as we move in through the potential long green flag run here in tonight's race from Charlotte. Sun is coming down here in Concord, so what that could mean, of course, is the grip that we see that elevates, but the drivers may be getting a little more antsy at trying to make some of these passes on the speedway, especially at the bottom end. And we've noted even with the higher horsepower package that we see in this race and what we could see for the rest of the season, giving more testing and experimenting from the admin team and a lot of the driver base who have so far reacted to this new addition to the iRacing service. But a byproduct of that added power, especially here at Charlotte, is a lack of use of the inside lane. If you can recall that race last Sunday from Charlotte Motor Speedway, it was all about using the high side to gain any sort of momentum. If you wanted to make a pass, you looked up to the high skies and you went up towards the outside wall. You didn't necessarily stay to the bottom of the racetrack unless you were willing to slow down a bit, give up track position, but save tires to have the better car over the course of the long run. And this onboard camera gives you a good look at what David Duran is doing, trying to build up momentum exit turn 4, find a way to build up, break through the air bubble that's right in between the nose of this 98 and at the rear bumper of this 5 car and Brandon Banks ahead, and just step out in front, be able to make a move to the inside, or if you can, point the nose up high, make some space in that hole in the wall, and be able to make an attempted pass for position. Duran still working on Banks in the battle for second place. He's got a good look at what Bacalhau is doing, switching lines, bottom, top, making sure he can find the best grip on either end of the speedway. Oh yeah, remember, if there is higher power, there is more power to the rear wheels. So if you do get this car sideways, a chance to potentially slow down as a result of that. If this car ends up unraveling from you on the steering wheel, here comes David Duran. Bottom look there in turns 1 and 2. Can't complete the pass, but Bacalhau suffered there on the back straightaway. Banks has a chance to throw it in for the lead. What a move from Banks, but Bacalhau's not done yet. 3-car fight for the lead coming back to turn 1. And it's Bacalhau fighting hard on the outside, just struggled to get around, potentially hit the wall, exit turn 2, and it allowed that Valvoline Chevrolet to step underneath, and now taking a step up high, shutting the door on Duran, gives him the push, entry turn 3, and what a battle this is going to be. We saw, again, Jaden Porter and Brandon Banks, the great battle they put up in the All-Star race last Sunday. Banks is now under fire, mistake off turn 4, and Duran makes the quick move underneath and fundamentally steps into the top 2, and now takes the Noble 5 lead. So if he stays ahead for the rest of this race, wins the $50 that go with being a red banner Noble 5 driver. David Duran, the rookie, making the move for second place. So it's Bacalhau at the head of this field, David Duran running second in that white Chevrolet. And this red, white, and blue Kyle Larson inspired Brandon Banks car running into the top 3. Bacalhau under fire again. This time pressure from Duran, who's pushed his car hard. He's made use of the mistakes from the drivers in front. And now looking for the lead for the first time tonight. Still eyeing down a first lead change. Here's on board with Bacalhau. Just a look from the back bumper of Bacalhau's Toyota. What a run off turn 4 for Duran, sneaking underneath and trying to challenge for the lead, taking a nose under. Bacalhau has stayed up high, and no dice for the 98 car, stays back and will continue this fight all the way back to turn 3. They have pulled away by a substantial margin to the 4th place car in Steven Stepien, now holding up a wall against this battle for the 5th position on the racetrack. Here comes Alex Muscarella, high side charge on Richard Swavely in his number 32 mellow yellow car. Brand new scheme for Richard Swavely, by the way. There's the heavy sponsorship on the back end of his Ford Mustang, a driver who has been around this Sunoco Cup, Droppin the Hammah Cup, Simax Cup, just everything in between since 2020. Swavely has been one of those original names in the fold, and a driver just moving through, trying to snag his first career victory and do it here in Season 2. Big run off turn 4, stepping up on the high shelf and makes a move potentially underneath the 48 machine of Alex Muscarella. But those two cars will continue in their getaway for position inside the latter half of the top 10. And slowly moving up is that St. Augustine, Florida native of Warren Kyle Keith. Pair of second place finishes over the last season or so. Daytona in the regular season finale was one of them in the last campaign. And then not too long ago, running in second to the eventual winner of the race in Cedric Hunter at the virtual Texas Motor Speedway. And Warren still searching for that elusive first win. He's been doing so a ton of time and has been told by a few of the drivers to me that Warren could be a rather strong threat at these mile-and-a-half tracks. We know he is a hard driver to get around. He is the typical Ryan Newman of this series, if you will, just a hard driver to move past. But Warren now looking up on his teammate. The SKM car is going 1-2 here, 6th and 7th on the racetrack at lap number 44. So it's a Florida driver up at the front of this field, and a Milwaukee, Wisconsin driver in Duran as a free agent, not aligned to any of the teams this season. And then Brandon Banks slowly recuperating his pace lost from the early portions of this run, and now making a move on Duran. So those cars just getting slightly closer to each other as a potential battle inside the top 20. Jesse Whittington making a move under Ethan Thompson. Battle for 21st, entering turn 3. Ethan, of course, our most recent driver to be added to the schedule here in Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series competition. Same with Dana Shepard, started this race last and has since weaved his way into the top 15. So a 9-position gain for Dana Shepard. And on the other side for Ethan Thompson, it's been a drag through this field. He's started up at the front, made a move inside the top 5, and got right front damage on his 99 Chevrolet. So still making an effort on Jesse Whittington, who has also fallen back through this field. These are some of the drivers that did come down pit road, at least around Jesse Whittington. Casey Knighton and Thompson, both of them came around 20 laps ago on lap 27 on our last yellow flag of the afternoon and nighttime here in Charlotte. While Whittington is yet to come down pit road a single time in this race. But for the most part, we've seen those drivers come in and it's fuel only or it's damage repair. We have not seen any Goodyear Eagles bolted on either side of most of these cars tonight. They understand the limited tire sets they have in a rather long race, so they don't want to use it too early on in this system. And Whittington is one of those who has just not elected to come in by any means necessary. And a driver that was at one point in this top 10, the Louisiana native, now slipping back to the outskirts of the top 20. And we'll see if he can piggyback up and try to get a better run later on tonight. Still a long way to go. It's the magic of these long races. You can spend so much of it, 90% of it, struggling through the run and having a slower race car. But if there is a track condition that suits the car at the right time, or potentially there's a way for the driver to just track position his way and will his way into a great position, it could be a chance at a victory for the very first time. And the same could be said for Jaden Porter. Heavy progression earlier on in this green flag stretch, stepped into the top 10, and now nowhere to be seen back in 18th after this car came down pit road around 6 laps ago, or around 9 laps ago. So Porter, the Kentucky native, playing defense on the Louisiana driver entering turn 1. And with our Charlie Byer photography onboard camera, get a look at it. Sim rig for Jesse Whittington, making this move on the outskirts of turn 2. And Porter, nothing he can do to shut the door, closes back, and will stay single file. Whittington now back up to 18th spot. How about this battle for second? Valvoline Chevrolet of Banks on the bottom, and the white car of Duran on the high side, sneaking through Alex Muscarella. Door-to-door contact. Exit turn 2. Muscarella fights underneath, and he's got some teammate help entering turn 3. Stepien pushes him forward. Muscarella to the top 3 for the first time in just a little while tonight from Charlotte. Duran falling off on his tires. Muscarella slips up exit 4. Here comes Duran back to the outside. And Steven Stepien, a potential chance to weave his way forward in turn 1. Just a shallow drop over the last few, making that move under Duran. And smart move by Duran. Contact, he's in the wall. 3 wide. And Muscarella sneaks his way through. Duran got touched at the exit of 4 and wiggled into the outside wall. Here comes Warren Kyle Keith to take advantage and pounce. Saw Stepien just wash up the front end of his Chevrolet Camaro and got right into the quarter panel of Duran. A second look in turn 4. And just trying to get all of it. And got into Duran. Best point of attack, though, for Duran to get hit because he could save it off the outside wall. Only negative is all that track position loss, and Duran is smothered and put back into 6th place as a result of the contact in turn 4. Now Keith making a move on the interior, and Stepien trying to play some of that defense as they come back around for lap 54. Still no proper challenge on the race leader. Gap has remained at around 9/10 of a second to nearly a full second, ballooning in the favor of Bacalhau. He has maintained his pressure to the rest of this field at the front of the group. And Brandon Banks, despite that early fall off from Duran and a couple of others, has weaved his way back into that second spot. And again, why we have considered him the favorite for the championship in this Droppin Hammah Cup Series. Even though it's very early on in the season, you can spell early days on the fate for a driver like Brandon Banks tonight. But this season has been otherworldly for the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina native, a driver for this Drinkin' Bros Racing team that shrinked a ton at the exit of Season 1 with former driver and dominant driver of the Sunoco Cup DTH era of Lawson Peel stepping away from the series as a result of not trying to run this next-gen car any more than he wants to. Brandon Banks, Kip Easley, and only a few others are representing this DBR group for 2026, and what a flag-bearing approach Brandon Banks has taken to this all. A driver who, especially on tracks like these, has performed at a high level, and like we mentioned, has not finished a race this season outside of the top 10. So he's got that 22-point advantage over Jaden Porter and just continuing to elevate that momentum, something that for right now we haven't seen from Brandon Banks until the advent of this season. Kicked off the series with the victory in 2026 at the World Center of Racing in Daytona Beach, and hence why he's got that red banner on the front end of his Chevrolet, part of that Noble 5 for the $50, and so far he's got the advantage. He is the highest running Noble 5 driver. David Duran II back in position number 6. So far, so good here from Charlotte. Battle for 8th position into turn 1. There's that other DBR Chevrolet, Kip Easley, that Cheddar's car that nearly had a chance to win a few races last season. A lot of great performances at the mile-and-a-half tracks, or rather the super speedways this season, and decent performance on the mile-and-a-halfs, but very powerful at the Iowa Speedway, especially earlier on in that run, running right behind Cedric Hunter and running right behind the pole sitter of that race. And so far, just on an early fall-off, Charles Stevens making a move from the high shelf in turn 1. And those two drivers going at it for position this time. Easily with 3 top 10s this season, his back-to-back 7th place finishes coming at mile-and-a-halfs in the campaign, Kentucky and Texas, on back-to-back affairs on Sundays. And so Kip Easley has been able to weave well into these positions when it matters most. Gave himself a proper shot at the Echo Park Speedway not too long ago. Also a mile-and-a-half, but in a super speedway configuration. And so the Nixa, Missouri native is slotting back into the top 10 as these tires have come through what is now the longest green flag run of the night. And remember, there are still drivers, especially at the front of this field, who have not come down pit road. The most recent driver to visit that is in the top 5, Warren Kyle Keith, now approaching what is 21 laps more than the rest of the field in front that he's got on fresh Goodyear Eagles. And while it's worked to just weave his way through the top 5 through the later portions of this run, it has taken a long while for this Florida native to move up. And again, possible chance now under this strategy call for a bulk of the top 10 to come in. A lot of those drivers have not pitted at all. They have faked a couple times. They have maybe looked a few times, but it comes at that point of the strategy where mentally as a driver, you tell yourself, have I burned enough of my Goodyear Eagles to waste a set this time by? Or with the fact that this is a rather long race, just step away from the idea of coming down pit road until it is absolutely necessary. If a caution were to come out right now, then everyone would come down pit road. It would be a no-brainer to have your first set of Goodyear Eagles bolted on when you've had a proper run put into them. But because we had those 3 early yellows coming up to lap 27, didn't give the drivers a real chance to put in a proper green flag stretch, as Brandon Banks makes a hiccup off turn 4, and inside goes Stempien in the battle for position number 4 coming into turn 1. But once you have already put in that full heat cycle on the tires, you have ran long enough, especially now, if a caution were to come out, you would come in, but even in a few laps time, pit window will open for the first time tonight. And so we'll see how different of a strategy those drivers who pitted earlier on in the affair end up taking this approach. Again, a lot of those drivers came in not for tires, but for damage repair and or fuel only. We saw Cedric Hunter do that before eventually coming back down pit road, and the 45 car has settled back into the 11th spot behind Kip Easley in the 8 machine, and he had to extend his stay on pit road at around 45 seconds because of that right front damage he sustained in turn 3 to bring out our most recent yellow of the race. But remember, he had come down pit road a ton, not to damage repair, not to take tires, but to just add on fuel. Try to add the extensive range of this NASCAR Next Gen car. And if there were a run like this, you would have enough fuel in the tank to go a bit longer than everyone else. And we have seen for a good majority of times that you can overcut, have the fresher tires later. That's the balance you try to play as a stock car driver. And then usually the overcut on these mile-and-a-halves have worked to perfection. At Texas Motor Speedway, we saw how different strategies unfolded, particularly near the end when we had those late yellows. It took a 2-tire call from Cedric Hunter to make up that track position up in the front. Does anyone take 2 tires? Not entirely a debate. I think a lot of drivers would take 4. But still a question mark as the night continues to roll here from virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. And we're glad that you're with us here for the World 600K on the KBueno Racing Network. It's been a fun ride through the first 66 laps and nearing what could be the halfway mark at lap 125 with at least 1 green flag pit stop put into the mix. There's Stephen Harlow, driver of his number 5 machine, the New Haven, Vermont native. What a ride it was for him last week in the All-Star race. Had to rally into the top 3 and attempt to get through on the first half of the KBueno Open Challenge. It was the rule at that time that at lap number 20 at the halfway mark, it was for the top 3 to move on to the All-Star race. They would get technically disqualified from the Open, but he would be a driver to move on, make a run for $25. And while he did eventually get there, it took a longer while than he needed to, just because of the fact that he got into Matthew Perusini, a driver not here tonight, got into some damage early on, and then repaired that race car through the course of the All-Star race. Reset, got back in line, and was able to put in a solid finish. And we have our first taker on pit road, and it is the race leader. Francisco Bacalhau says now's his time at lap 68 of the green flag run. So first taker in, and does that add on to the stress for any of the other drivers? And the Mockingjay has called. We've got some more drivers on pit road this time, and one of those includes the points leader in Brandon Banks, David Duran, Chuck Stevens. They have entered their way on the pit lane for the first time tonight, and that leaves Alex Muscarella entering his 70th green flag lap. A chance to continue to lead this race. A driver who for a few years was named the Mozzarella Man because of his last name's similarity to the word mozzarella. And the Mozza Man not to be played around with right now. A driver looking for his first career drop in the Hammah Cup Series win after taking a while to get his first win in the Sunoco Cup Series days all those years ago, but still taking his shot at the outskirts of turns 3 and 4. Battle for second. Here comes Harlow underneath Keith in this battle for position. And again, these are drivers that have extended their stay so far. Stempian, Swavely, and a few others on their longest stint, and now they're in pit road this time by. Swavely has extended his call until now. Jesse Whittington, Brad Fulham, among those that have taken pit road this time by. The onboard look from Swavely as his car comes into pit road for the first time tonight. Of course, we mentioned the different strategy calls that we could see on overcuts, undercuts, and everything in between. There's Muscarella on pit road this time by. Stephen Harlow right behind him, and a chance for Warren Kyle-Keith to take advantage of the race lead. Here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, 72 laps into the run, and Cedric Hunter, Justin Erb, Charles Van Schaik, Garrett Walden, among those in the top 5 that have willingly stayed out because of their earlier trips for a splash and go on pit road. As the tires lift up on the 48 machine, the Oracle car getting his jacks lifted up on the left side of the race car. He'll be in on 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles and away this time by. But we have seen, of course, the overcut become the most predominant strategy and the race leader burning the most fuel at the front, but overall with the best advantage at that time, Bacalhau. You'd be surprised that he didn't extend his stay as long as he did. Usually we see that race leader go out longer than everyone else, and while second, third, fourth, fifth have come down pit road multiple times through green flag stopping scenarios, usually the race leader stays out a few more before eventually coming in. They get the word from their teammates and crew chiefs that the other drivers are entering pit road, but so far seems to be in the favor of the Hialeah, Florida native, making one of his first few starts of 2026. Cedric Hunter getting blown by through the air. What has happened to the 45 car? He's back and forth, but some trouble. Slow off of turn 4. And he's going to extend his stay for just a little longer. Here's the onboard with Hunter. There's the onboard look, just trying to curl this car down to the entry of pit road. And we've talked about before at other mile and a half just how difficult it can be to make up all that time on the braking marker when you're turning and braking at the same time in this next-gen car, which has been said by many not to be an easy thing to do, especially when this car weighs over 3,300 pounds. But at the same time, you look at the potential for speeding with that apron transition. We've seen drivers get sideways, drivers over speed coming in pit road. They lock up the brakes trying to make pit road speed limit. But we've yet to discuss probably the biggest factor when it comes down to entering pit road at the right time, and it's the pit road barrels at the entry of the corner. That was a wall built to distinguish the racing line from pit road at the Charlotte Roval course. You'll see on the front straightaway there is a chicane that is used for the Charlotte Roval, not entirely in use anymore. NASCAR has since decided to revert back to this oval configuration for the chase for the Cup race later on this season instead of this weird configuration from an oval and a road course together. But you'll see it here off of the corner as Harrell is coming in. There's a bit of a chicane. There is asphalt down there, and to prevent drivers getting into pit road inadvertently while in the braking zone for that chicane on the front straightaway, NASCAR added a wall and pit road barrels to the entry of pit road. It comes to an end by the mid portion of the quad oval around that start finish line, and you don't have a wall separating the track from the pit lane. However, it was used as a necessity, as a caution for drivers that perhaps may have gotten into trouble entering pit road. So if you do overextend your entry, car locks up, you don't have a way to turn it, you could easily hit those pit barrels and be very well on your way to a DNF at the end of tonight's race. So we've gone 78 laps through tonight from this World 600K from Charlotte Motor Speedway, and now our longest green flag run of the night. Warren Kyle Keith has stayed out as far as possible here on his 58th lap. Just 7 laps better behind him in the Noble 5 lead as of right now is Justin Erb in his SKM Ford Mustang, and Charles Van Schaik, a driver on 3 straight top 10s entering tonight's affair from Charlotte. That SpongeBob Go Racing diecast Ford Mustang Dark Horse runs third. Ethan Thompson has stepped up back into the top 5 in fourth, and Christian McCrelly, rookie driver in the 75, has moved up into the 5th spot, now getting around Thompson in this bid for 4th place entering turn 3. So all clean and green here from the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. We thank you for joining our coverage of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series and our World 600K from Charlotte. Don't go anywhere. We've got more on the other side.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
These Pop-Tarts are tasty.
Maybe Pop-Tarts do belong on the tailgate table.
Pop-Tarts, a lineup you can eat.
There's only one fuel that can drive the performance you demand from your car. New 94 Octane, the highest octane on the market, only at Sunoco.
And back live from the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. Welcome back to the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series and our 8th race of the 2026 season, the World 600K from Charlotte. Kenneth Bueno with you on the KBueno Racing Network. You watch the race leader, Warren Kyle Keith, continue to stay out. And listening to his car under our most recent side-by-side break, he is saving fuel. So a driver who did come down pit road on a 5.8 second stop 64 laps ago, lap number 21, has decided he is going to extend his stay for as long as physically possible. Take a listen in turn 1. Just radio silence in turn 3. That is signified of a driver trying to make it as long as possible. He's got 4.5 seconds on his teammate Justin Erb, who so far, like Warren Kyle Keith, are the only cars yet to have pit in this race. Although Erb is on a later strategy, he came down for 4 fresh tires and fuel on lap number 27. On 60 laps ago, Erb can still go a little bit longer than his teammate Keith can, but these are still the very backbones of these strategy calls. Just saving fuel, staying out as long as you physically can, and then just trying to fire off on either fresh tires or a prayer that a yellow flag will come out sometime soon. It has not happened so far. Our last yellow coming around at lap 27, and there could be another one. Bakayao sideways, he saves it in turn 2. We were just about to watch that battle between himself and Muscarella, and Bakayao holds on to the race car. We nearly have our 4th yellow flag of the night, as Bakayao is still fighting a loose condition in turn 4. That car was all out of sorts in the fight with Muscarella, who was on, again, the fresher set of Goodyear Eagles. We noted how he came down pit road later. Bakayao had been the earliest of those in the top 5 to come down. And here's a look at the replay. We call this aero packing in the next-gen world on iRacing, just putting on the pressure to the quarter panel, the rear spoiler. And the phenomenon that happens here is you remove the air of the rear spoiler of the car in front. By doing that, you carry speed right behind them. Bakayao snaps loose. A wonderful save to keep that car from trouble. And from what we've seen with this next-gen car, could be very easy to overcorrect. Now Muscarella under more heavy pressure, this time from Stephen Harlow, running into the top 3 for the first time tonight in his Warrior Soar Chevrolet, trying to weave on through for this DTH Racing team, now the second highest of that group to be running inside the top 10. So Warren Kyle Keith has rejoined pit road. He has rejoined the field on a 15.5 second stop, just came in and gave away the lead. His teammate Justin Erb on the longer strategy can go just a bit longer on just a few more laps. But in turn, Alex Muscarella will take away the lead for the first proper time tonight in comfortable, clean air. One of the first times we see him take the lead since Texas Motor Speedway, one of our few mile-and-a-half races earlier on in the season. It can be told many times that Muscarella has been a contender, a fast driver at these types of intermediate tracks. And even with the higher horsepower package, Muscarella has warmed up to it nicely tonight. And on the fresher set of Goodyear Eagles, has weaved his way to the proverbial race lead. And now that Justin Erb has come down pit road, Alex Muscarella will take over the top spot here in this World 600K as we approach the halfway mark of lap number 125. But several instances where Muscarella had been a fast car, taking pole positions, getting fast laps at the front, leading laps at the head of the field, always soured by some kind of bad luck. And that has been sort of the story for Alex Muscarella's career in this series, and even dating back to the Sunoco Cup Series days. Plenty of opportunities where that 48 car could be a potential race winner. It just always took a bad luck scenario poorly timed yellows, poorly timed crashes, instances where it's no fault of his own, but he just ends up in it anyway. And it's hurt the possibility of Muscarella's chances at becoming a Droppin the Hammah Cup Series winner. A driver who is still searching for that first dub as you watch Bacalhau hold off what was left of the remaining pressure from the 6 machine of Stephen Harlow. And those cars remain single file in that bid for second. They are a full second and a half away from the leader and no chance to gain. Steven Stepien is not too far behind in 4th place, just about 6/10 behind his teammate in Harlow. So it could be a 3-horse fight for that runner-up spot as it continues on tonight. And back to the story of Muscarella, a driver who has captured 4 career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series poles, and now entering his 32nd Droppin the Hammah Cup start, only a best finish of 4th. That happened 3 times this season, all 3 of them happening in the last campaign, from Bristol, Michigan, and Phoenix. All of them very strong races for Muscarella overall, but just has not been the calling card for this 48 car that he would have liked to have seen happen to him. The driver now trying to set off into the nighttime sky here in the Queen City and weave his way for his first win, while Harlow makes an attempted move on Bacalhau and a successful try for the 6 machine, so steps up into the runner-up spot with Steven Stepien not too far behind. And remember who's in this top 5, a driver who is very well known for saving his stuff better than anyone else in the field. It's the 5-car Brandon Banks. So keep an eye on him, Ray Rogers, and a few others that are being siphoned through as lap machines break up what is rest of the top 10. David Duran running 6. He's about a full second and a half back of Brandon Banks, but needs to get around that 51 car of Ray Rogers and Richard Swavely, Jesse Whittington, Kip Easley, and Charles Stevens, the SimRapMarket.com Chevrolet, rounding out the rest of this current top 10. Well, he gave us permission to do it. We asked a few times whether it would be okay for Francisco Bacalhau to join us under the green flag in a probably historic first. We have not really seen this on the KBueno Racing Network. We are going to be joined by Francisco Bacalhau as he makes this move on Stephen Harlow in this retaliated effort to get back into the 2nd spot and chase for the lead. Francisco, what a drive this has been. You had a whale of a save not too long ago as Muscarella made the move around you. You've had ton of laps now here at Charlotte under the new tires that started the run and the new tires that begin this most recent run. What have you felt, and what has this car been like through the race?
Yeah, it's nothing like what we had last week, even though we had the horsepower increase, Kenneth. I feel like I'm fighting a loose condition that it doesn't appear like most of these other guys may be fighting. I think they're on the tight side while I'm just battling the right rear, especially this end of the racetrack, 3 and 4.
So take us through this kind of moment, right? You're battling for position, you're trying to find any edge, you're trying to get around the dirty air. Fundamentally, as a driver, what kind of things do you think about when maybe there's silence in the middle of this run, even in a team voice chat, or even if you have a teammate or a crew chief in your ear? What do you think about while behind the wheel in the moment like this?
Just trying to worry about what I can do right now. Like, I had a moment there off before the last lap and I lost some good ground to Steven. We're all catching up to Muscarella. Stepien's closing up to me here. Frank's got a little bit of damage a couple laps ago. He's got wheel damage. So trying to see how this run goes, how my tires progress compared to the rest. I liked how it happened in the first run. The way the wear went, the speed I was able to kind of mitigate even through the tire wear. I certainly felt like I saved a lot more in the beginning portion of this run, yet it somehow feels worse.
So take us through when you're in clean air like you were to start this race from the pole. You were right up in front. Now you're in the middle of traffic, so it's a very different scenario. How differently do you drive the next-gen car when you know you have clean air versus moments like this where you're kind of behind traffic and you're trying to get around other cars?
Well, I mean, at least the gap I have to Harlow right now shouldn't be enough to worry me as far as any dirty air. I'm actually more concerned about Stempy behind me because of the aero pack. Tonight, it feels like it's just on another level than I've seen at some other racetracks. Him being as far back as he is right now, it's going to get me sideways like you saw with Muscarella. It's just kind of not a good time right now, and I don't think I pushed the tires all that much.
Well, you know what, Francisco? I will tell you, it was a very good time when you told me I could interview you under green. We usually never do this. We always try to not bother the drivers, but we'll have you have your time to get this car back and settled and potentially get back in this battle for the lead. Thank you so much for the time, Francisco, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, appreciate it. Go watch that battle for the lead. It's going to get good here in a few laps.
Definitely is going to get good. That's our good friend, Francisco Bacayao, rejoining his teammates at KBueno Racing. And as we watch the battle for the lead, it is starting to come down to a crunch. Stephen Harlow has been the fastest car inside this top group. If it's not Bacayao, 30.234. For the Vermont native and Muscarella just having to wait, 30.324. Nearly a full tenth of a second of a difference. In fact, a full tenth. So if there is any moment at halfway where we can call this the fireworks here at Charlotte in this World 600K, this moment could very well be it. And remember, we've seen other drivers get side by side and they start to lose time. They bleed a ton of that position to other drivers behind them, and what that does, it just reels in the rest of the party. And it could be between two very good friends and two teammates on this Droppin the Hammah race team. They've got another teammate behind them in fourth in Steven Stepien. So keep an eye on the front-running four. We could have a four-horse race, a four-course quartet here at Charlotte to sing us a lovely tune around halfway. And Muscarella snags the wall, kisses, and then hangs onto it. Stephen Harlow throws to the inside, has a chance for the lead, plants and fires in turn 3. We have seen time and time again that very same mistake. Riding the wall, getting into the safer boards, and just not being able to squeeze out of it. Harlow right behind by Carle, snags his position underneath. He'll fire under in turn 1. But Muscarella fights hard, stays planted, stays defensive, and Muscarella holds on to the lead for now, but it may not be long before these two start to scrap again. Once more, to the inside, Harlow looks, tries to find an entryway into turn 4, and once again, Muscarella stays in line. So it's 1-2, teammates at DTH. Bacayao holds on to third, but it may not be for long. Battle for position starting to heat up, and the Droppin the Hammah team starting to take over here from Concord, North Carolina. Stepien on the bottom for third. And there's a look at the loose condition from Bacayao holding on. And Stepien just waiting in the moment. Looking for his chance to strike. Nearly got into Bacayao there, turn 1. But steps underneath, tries to lunge his Chevrolet accessories car on the bottom. A driver who spends his time off the sim as a dealership member at a Chevrolet, possibly near you in Massachusetts if you live there. But Stepien trying to nudge his Chevrolet to the bottom and use all of that bow tie power to the inside of the Toyota Camry of Bacayao. Cuts indoor, turn 4, contact off the corner, into the quad oval goes Stepien, a chance to nose ahead for third place. And again, just truthfully to how hard it's been to pass tonight from Charlotte, especially in the bottom side of the racetrack. And one of those byproducts is the oval refresh here on the iRacing Sim. Even with the lesser grip that we usually have from these nighttime conditions where the understeer becomes a problem. And usually when you have understeer, the last thing you want to do is be on the bottom of the racetrack because you have to plant the throttle much sooner, especially if you're underneath a race car. So a lot of those issues in the All-Star race become very prevalent because of that understeer effect. But even without that, we talk about the oval refresh that has been a very big part of the iRacing Sim over the last few years, an attempt to get multi-groove racing back into the sim after many years of it being not really involved, and with the tire model not being exactly too cooperative with multi-lane racing, especially at tracks like these where in real life with these cars, they are multi-lane. You can run the bottom, you can run the middle, you can run the outside boards, kind of like how we're seeing here tonight. The only caveat with the oval refresh is the way they have tinkered with the way rubber is being placed down on the speedway. So as you watch Harlow look for the lead now in turn 3, watch the way he has to hold his throttle until he gets to mid-corner and continue to stay aware of where that Muscarella car is at the top. And he can't fire as much as he'd like to because all that energy put in on the bottom means less grip. It's a slickened race surface, and for the most part, understeer conditions that are already a baseline here at Charlotte through practice and qualifying has now become a constant when the rubber has been placed on and the surface overall has darkened because of that placed rubber from our Goodyear Eagles that we've seen now extend into the longest run tonight. So once again, Harlow unsuccessful in his efforts to move into the race lead. And the teammates have made it 1-2-3 on the racetrack. Harlow still back by our car length. We'll keep an eye on the race lead as it develops. And we got a word from Bakayao that Brandon Banks, possible suspension damage and steering damage to the 5 car, the driver who was just inside the top 3 for a bulk of this run. And someone who has established himself this season as the contender for the win no matter where you step. If there is that wheel damage on the 5 car of Banks, there could be some disastrous trouble spelled ahead for this Valvoline car through the run, as Richard Swabley potentially sets up a move. This could be for 6th place on the racetrack, but everybody has since pulled away to the tune of a few tenths. Here comes Harlow back to the inside, reigniting the fight for the lead, and this time he's got it. Muscarella tries to look peek underneath and can't quite do it for the crossover. New race leader from Charlotte, Stephen Harlow in the 6th car. What a drive from Harlow. And just watching on as his teammate tries to chase. These two on the same set of Goodyear Eagles at around 44 laps old. Here's the onboard with Muscarella. And Harlow getting his first laps led in a Droppin the Hammah Cup Series race since that Auto Club Speedway, our last points-paying affair. A few weeks ago before the All-Star event last Sunday, it was a pair of weeks ago where Harlow was in contention to win that race, battling for position up at the front with the likes of his teammates Steven Stempian and Jaden Porter. We had some great battles for position up at the front of the field with Harlow involved in that, and a very aggressive style of racing got him ahead, led 7 laps in that Southern California 300 a few weeks ago. And now getting back to the top step of the podium, at least for now, as we roll into the 8 laps before the official halfway mark here from Charlotte Motor Speedway. We're glad that you're joining us on the KBueno Racing Network. Again, our second longest affair in this Droppin the Hammah season that we continue through the 2026 year. And still awaiting that finale race that'll happen here in Concord, North Carolina later on in the campaign at 300 laps. So if you thought this one was going to be a lengthy affair, well, that one's going to be even longer. And that's going to decide a champion on points alone. So Stephen Harlow hoping that he can be one of those drivers there. Came into tonight with a pretty good effort to weave ahead of that chase cut line, but still 4 points clear. Trying to assert his dominance and perhaps just squeeze away from that cut line and beyond being in danger of being knocked out of the top 16 that make the chase for the Cup later on this year. But again, we've talked about the story still to be written over the course of the campaign and a lot still to be said and done. And Charlotte's going to be no different through the course of this race. So Banks has fallen back to the 8th spot. And into the spotlight from 6th is the Canadian in this 45 car of Cedric Hunter. Again, we mentioned his several tries on pit road through the early yellows just to get an extra splash of fuel on his Category 5 Esports Toyota Camry. But now the Canadian is focused on something else, just flat out becoming a fresh slate of paper and now writing in his set of pace to bring into the rest of this race. As he came down pit road around 45 laps ago, but a driver that in his pit stop before that brought out the yellow right here in this spot, 3 and 4, and had to repair that right front car. But Hunter's back in it, tip-top shape. He got around Richard Swabley and now chasing down David Duran, tune of 1.2 seconds that separate the Toyota and Chevrolet, as Duran currently remains the leader of our Noble 5 here from Charlotte. So again, a reminder, Bakayao is sideways and he spun around. Exit turn 2, planted perpendicularly on the back straightaway, And after our longest green flag run of the night, Bacalhau is in peril. Bacalhau had fallen to as far as 4th place on the racetrack, got around the likes of David Duran, Steven Stempien, all of them under the initial strategy, and then got passed back through the long green flag stretch, and now involved in our most recent spill, a single car incident at the exit of turn 2. Take a look here on the second look. That's Ray Rogers, the lapped car, a driver who entered that run 2 laps down in 24th. And Bacalhau was mentioning lots of trouble with the right rear, snagged the wall, car got sideways, and just nothing he could do to keep it underneath him. Car goes sideways again at the exit of 2, keeps it off of the outside wall, and does a great job at avoiding damage, but still damage done on the track position side of things. Take a listen with Bacalhau as he comes off turn 2. And that's where the car comes under and plants the throttle again just to get off the inside wall. And locks up the brakes. That car goes for the spill. And not the first time that we've seen Bacalhau go for a ride at the exit turn 2. Of course, we saw him in a pretty sizable crash near the end of the All-Star race. Here comes the field on pit road. First chance we get to see the entire field coming in. It's almost weird to say that because we've had such a long green flag run. All the drivers are in, and it is wholesale service. Who gets around first? Harlow, the race leader, 4 fresh tires. Stempien wants to beat him to a line. It is 1, 2, 3. DTH coming off of pit road. And Stephen Harlow's got the nose ahead. He's got the race lead as a result. So a fantastic drive from Stephen Harlow, a driver who led only 7 laps last race in the points-paying effort at Auto Club Speedway, and this time has already bested it at 10 laps led tonight, and will hold on to the lead for our next green flag restart. Steven joins us now. Steven, we talked to your teammate in Steven Stempien. He was still getting used to the rhythm of the race. Now that we entered our longest green flag run of the night, this car seemed to be on fire. Got around to the race lead. You stepped around Muscarella. What did it take to get around your teammate in that moment, and what has this car felt like over the run?
Well, I mean, just getting to the front, I knew the one person that was going to race me the hardest out of everybody was Alex. Your teammates are going to fight you harder than anybody else on the track. So I just knew it was going to be a battle, and he wasn't going to give up easily. Got by him. I feel pretty good just on the long run. I don't know what these guys have for short run speed. I can't seem to find it.
So you've got your teammates behind you, and usually that seems to be a positive indicator as to hold off the rest of the field behind you. But like you said, nobody has fought you harder than the teammates tonight, especially Muscarella in that last run. So what do you expect there on the teamwork on this restart and how that'll orchestrate the run into the first corner?
I think it's still early enough that we're going to be smart and just have some give and take and make sure we get to the end. We're just barely getting to half of the time, so we got plenty of time to race.
All right, Steven, we very much appreciate the time, and best of luck here from the lead on the next restart.
Thank you very much.
That's Stephen Harlow, one of 3 Droppin the Hammah Chevrolets that are in this top 5. This team has taken over the course of the last run. Harlow, not a winner yet in his Droppin the Hammah Cup Series career. Much like Muscarella, still looking for that elusive number 1 career dub. And a pair of winners right behind him. 2-time winners this season, in fact. Stempien behind him on the inside of row number 2. And Cedric Hunter, first time we see that 45 car back in the top 5 since the very, very early goings of the Auto Club Speedway race. Cedric Hunter has not been around the top 5 much tonight. He'll try to assist Muscarella through the restart zone after our longest run and our halfway mark here in the World 600K. Beautiful jump from the teammates, pair of them on the inside. Muscarella nowhere to go. Swavely makes the dart underneath for 3rd, and it's Stephen Harlow got the command. Stempien rides the back bumper, turn 2. Oh, look at Bacalhau swinging underneath 3 wide for position, turn 3. You can tell that 30 car wants to get back to the front very quickly. And he diced underneath, contact with Keith on the turn 4 part of the racetrack. Quad oval, they'll look around, side by side for 10th, back to turn 1. And what a drive that has become. Pair of teammates, Bacalhau, Porter trying to nose and tail their way through the field. Meanwhile, Stempien watches forward as his teammate controls the lead, tries to hold back, and just steadies into the draft right now. And like Harlow told us, potential give and take for the top 3. We know at super speedways, when you have teammates with you, how much you can control the tempo and the rhythm of the race. Very different when you're at 1.5 miles when it's all about tire saving and being disciplined. But Stempien hoping that maybe a mistake from his teammate can give him a shot at leading his first few laps tonight from Charlotte, but holding on and trying to arc down on the inside of turn 4, just staying in a few car lengths behind. Durand and Cedric Hunter in their battle for 4th. They engage turn 4, and they've got Muscarella in it as well. Remember, Durand is currently still the No Bull 5 leader, so out of the 5 cars, he would be able to grant the $50 to his name. That is, of course, if he stays there over the next half of tonight's event from Charlotte Motor Speedway. The next closest running car, you got to go all the way back to what is Jaden Porter, who is now just at the edge of the top 10, got around the fellow No Bull 5 Chevrolet of Brandon Banks. So Durand has command. He's going to roll the outside of Muscarella here, sends it for turn 1, trying to roll the momentum of this car through the apex, and he's got to run at the exit of turn 2. Muscarella has to play the defense, side drafting on the back straightaway, and Durand clears for 3rd. There's Durand stepping into 3rd. Pair of Ford Mustangs teammates going in at turn 1. 6th place. Black and yellow, mellow yellow car of Swavely. And the camo and orange Bass Pro Shops car of Keith. As sliding underneath is Jaden Porter, trying to snag a position inside the top 8. And Cedric Hunter tries to fire exit turn 4 with a look underneath Alex Muscarella and a chance to get his way back into the top 5 after a bit of chances squandered, and of course was the outside starter there, row number 2 on the restart, but just got held up so much by Muscarella's reaction to the initial jump from his teammate in Stephen Harlow. So at the moment it has alleviated some of the pressure for the DTH cars up at the front, but it has elevated the chance to be dropping back through the field for this 45 car. Keith makes the run up high and tries to angle it down low. We've seen that a lot of times tonight because of the lack of grip, because of that understeer, the rather big time response, and the overwhelming majority of responses from drivers has been cut up high, try to arc down low, and just diamond these corners around Charlotte to be able to squeak down to the bottom, get around that paint on the inside of the racetrack, and use some of that paint. We've seen it fundamentally become a game changer in these cars, and unlike a lot of other 1.5 miles on the schedule, you'll see that painted line become used as a grip strip. We've seen at other tracks, they have a white or yellow line down there, and it's just used to distinguish the racing surface from the proper apron transition. But here at Charlotte, drivers have experimented with it. They have exploited it in real life for pace. Dragging the left side tires on the blue paint does give you more turn in the corner. So for what most of the field has been dealing with, which is an overwhelming tight condition behind the wheel of their cars, if you can use that painted line as a way to turn your machine around through the exit of turns 3 and 4, at least like Stempien and Harlow have done, then it could create perhaps a looser race car over the course of the stretch and may give you an advantage overall in track position. So you didn't see the pass for the lead, but Stempien got around his teammate Harlow, didn't offer too much resistance as he got around. And for the first time tonight, Steven Stempien, the Massachusetts native, is going to be able to take the lead. Here in the World 600K, the onboard look. And now just stepping into his own zip code. Lap time 30 flat. And while Harlow was still faster, now it is switched guards, 29.864. Steven Stepien, Harlow at a 30 flat, 30.043. One of those slowest cars inside the top 5, but holds on to second. And a decent gap behind him at about a few tenths, maybe give it about 4 to 5 tenths, half a second. And there's contact. Duran's into the outside wall. Muscarella got into him as they entered turn 3. What a save from Duran, but not the first time he's had to use the outside barrier to save his car. Near scare, lap 136. Make it a double on DTH Chevrolets. They get into the 98 car on the back half of the course and get him sideways and having to save it off of a hit to the outside wall. Get another look at this. We've talked all night long about corner exits, but we've yet to talk about corner entry. Muscarella sent it deep in the corner, tried to side draft Duran back, and it got the 98 unsettled. They definitely made contact, whittled up to the outside wall, caught the barrier, and saved the car as a result. But Duran will bleed the track position, and thus the No Bull 5 lead going into the hands of Jaden Porter, the All-Star winner who has since stepped into P6 after a pretty sluggish first half here from Charlotte. He has turned this car around and now looks for the top 5 for the first time tonight. And despite Porter having an average finish of 7.4, the Louisville, Kentucky native has struggled the last few weeks in dropping the Hammah Cup Series competition when they're paying points. The All-Star win was a breakthrough moment, told us how exciting, how special it was for him to win an All-Star race in that capacity. And after having his PC crash earlier before the drivers' meeting had concluded, had to start at the tail end of the field. That's a rule supplemented here in the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series. If you cannot make the entirety of the drivers' meeting, you have to forfeit your qualifying time and start at the rear. That's what Porter has had to do tonight, has worked through the gauntlet of this field, has taken his turn around at the exit of turn 4, got into Stephen Harlow earlier in this race to bring out our first yellow of the night. But Porter giving way just a bit, 22 points out of the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series points lead. We saw that as shallow as single digits between Porter and Banks, two of the most outstanding drivers of the season, and still reflective over the course of the year. But Porter has been a little more sluggish over the last few weeks. Auto Club a 14th place finish and a 15th place finish through the strategy calls that ended the Texas Motor Speedway race back in late March. His last top 10 was 4th after starting 17th in the Kentucky Speedway race, his home track. And a driver who for 4 weeks going actually, since the drop of the green flag in mid-March at Echo Park Speedway, has qualified outside of the top 10 in every single one of those races, and half of them have become finishes reflecting outside of the top 10. Porter, of course, a winner earlier on this season, captured the flag at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. That was race number 2. How long ago that was? In early March. But of course, that momentum from the $25 getting into his pocket from the All-Star race victory and the hard racing he had to complete in order to come around to win that race told us lots of momentum behind the Chevrolet for him. And after winning the 4-wide racing TJ's team race at Homestead of Miami against his boss man and the driver you're looking at right now in Bacalhau, all the momentum in the world for Jaden Porter trying to capture his first championship in his first full-time 4-wide effort. There's the run-up for 8th place. Red, white, and blue. Toyota Camry with some black sprinkled in the Celsius heat car. Bacalhau falling short to 9th. And the red, white, and blue Valvoline Chevrolet of Brandon Banks. The aforementioned potential suspension damage for Banks, not entirely affecting him too much. However, this car has substantially dropped pace. His last pit stop was over a full minute on pit road around 22 laps ago, so it was to repair the ailing conditions on the suspension side for Banks. However, he has recuperated. He's gotten back in line. And he's going to try to bring his teammate with him. Kip Easley on the inside, looking for a chance inside the top 10. And just now, rejoining the fight in the top 15 is the Cypress Academy number 94. Jesse Whittington, we saw him last time by checking in beneath the top 20. A very bit of a struggle through the opening long green flag stretch, but has since come around. And now this car, after pitting with the rest of this field on a casual 4-tire call, has been able to move on through. The Louisiana native is stepping right behind Kip Easley, looking for an attempted pass to squeeze into the top 10 for the first time in just a little while. Has a good run through the quad oval, tries to point his nose inside turn 1, but backs out on his potential chance to get around Kip Easley. And Whittington is one of those drivers that remains calm behind the wheel and likes to keep respect at the top of his priority list. Doesn't like to make enemies on the racetrack, and a lot of raw pace for Whittington through the course of his last few years racing with a lot of these drivers in the Sunoco Cup Series through its last few seasons, and now even through his first full-time tenure as a Droppin the Hammah Cup Series driver. A lot of raw pace, a lot of talent behind the wheel, just trying to put a full race together for a win. Looking underneath Kip Easley in that great battle as Charles Van Schaik and Justin Erb rally on inside-outside, pair of prancing horses and Ford Mustangs in the run-up for 13th place. And meanwhile, at the front, it is Droppin the Hammah team versus Droppin the Hammah team in turn 1. Firing on the inside. Stepien wants to look underneath, carrying through the momentum on the yellow paint, or on the blue paint and the white paint here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, but Stephen Harlow gets back to the lead from Charlotte. We have seen these two get at it. Friendly competition between Harlow and Stepien over the last few. But again, like Harlow mentioned in that interview under yellow, just give and take. Don't press too hard. Run for position when you can, but most importantly, do not lose time to the rest of the field. It's 1, 2, 3, a part of the same group, and you don't see that often at mile-and-a-half tracks. We've seen it before with only a few teams. KBueno Racing has done it, but Droppin the Hammah, one of the biggest teams in this series, using their numbers to their advantage. And it's Harlow with the hefty punch at the front, trying to deal the knockout blow inside the final 100 laps here from Concord, North Carolina. It's been a beautiful night of action here in the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series. We'll take another side-by-side break on the KBueno Racing Network in just a bit. But for right now, you continue to watch this fight for the race lead as it continues to unfold. And right now, it has been a battle of titans between those two drivers. It's been really all about stepping forward as much as possible and just trying to use as much of the clean air as possible. Stepien's got a great run off turn 2, attempts to cross over, weaves underneath, peeked under by, and now tries to fight her underneath for the race lead. He's got a nose down there, contact in the quad oval. Not an easy thing to do at around 185 miles an hour. And it's still deadlocked for the lead. Stepien looking for a door ahead, side drafting on the straightaway. Harlow sends it into the third quarter. He's got a nose through, and he's clear for now. Will use the drive off turn 4 to stay in front. And Harlow sustains his lead for another lap. He lives to fight another day. But Steven Stepien is giving all that he's got. A best punch delivered for Steven Stepien with 97 laps to go. And remember now, as we continue this run, if it remains green, as we've seen it do so far, and like we also mentioned in our last stretch of green flag pit stops, there will be a cut possibly earlier than the max distance these drivers can go. Remember back earlier in this race when Bacalhau, the race leader, had gone around 65 laps. He went a little bit earlier than that, but a lot of drivers extended into the 60s on this run as Muscarella darts the bottom on Steven Stepien in the fight for second for turn 3. But if these drivers can go the rest of the way green without a yellow flag in the middle of it all, we will eventually have a final pit stop for the Ren. Mascarella hard into the wall, comes back into the quad oval, spins through the grass. Will that bring out the crucial yellow flag? For now it doesn't, and will stay green. Mascarella, big time trouble, slow to get up in turn 4. And through the quad oval, went around for the spill. Now with 95 laps to go, we are going to stay green from Charlotte off a huge scare off the final corner. So this was the attempted pass for second. Mascarella got around. Oh, and just lost it. Tried to save it through the quad oval. That's the asphalt of the Roval chicane that we were talking about, but plenty of bumps through the AstroTurf. Car went sideways completely. Nose ahead on top of the racing line, but iRacing Race Control does not throw the yellow. So Mascarella could easily fall a lap down, and in all of that, Cedric Hunter has taken away second. What a drive from the Canadian. Nearly saw 3 wide. Porter got put into the outside wall while he was battling Keith. And while Porter has been able to clear it, Cedric Hunter, the biggest winner of them all, stepping into the runner-up spot for the first time tonight, and a chance to hound on the driver in front. Onboard look with Hunter. Eyes set on the race leader. With 91 to go this time by, and he's the fastest car on the racetrack. 30.162. He is a full 10th faster than the leader. Back to turn 1. Stays back in line. Harlow blocks the bottom, and they'll stay nose to tail as the teammate back in third. Stempien washes away in the sunset with a Porter chance to get into third. Can this be the new fight for the lead? So you watch these two run nose to tail. It's still less than a car length separating Chevrolet Toyota for the top spot here at Charlotte. And a chance to snag clean air and be in that crucial position if we stay green. That was nearly a yellow there with Mascarella. I don't know how that did not come out as a caution flag, but nonetheless, we stay green. Mascarella sent to the back, could potentially fall a lap down from the leaders as he runs 23rd. But with a potential money stop on the way, and a lot of green flag racing to go, this is far from over. On board with Porter looking for third. And this, for the first time all night long, he is in the Noble 5 lead, ahead of everyone else for the $50 and a chance to win $75 over the last few weeks. Hunter steps up. Mishap by Harlow, exit turn 4. Hunter's got the lead. First time we see Hunter up front. And after a fantastic drive through the long green flag run and lots of pit stops to get there, Cedric Hunter, the new race leader from Charlotte Motor Speedway. You can never quite count out this 45 Toyota, who after finishing runner-up in the championship has put in his last 2 race results at first and second. Average finish of 11.9 and an average finish of just 1.5 in his last 2 points paying Droppin the Hammah Cup starts. It has been a spring to remember for Cedric Hunter, and now with 85 to go next time by, he is just pulling away. Half a second to Stephen Harlow running in the runner-up spot, and still more pressure on the way in the form of Kentucky's Jaden Porter trying to look for second. How this race has turned around with, again, one potential pit stop to go at the end of it all. And before we had that chaos unravel right in front of our very eyes off turn 4, we mentioned that potential final stop. We saw drivers go a max of around 68 to 70 laps on a stint. And that was with Justin Urban, Warren Kyle Keith saving fuel. But on the max of it all, 61 to 65 laps, we've seen that become the play for a lot of drivers in this field. Will we see that become a foray into the action in that final run? And if they are able to extend as far as possible, they could potentially end up on a pit stop with 30 laps to go. And like we've seen tonight, the fresh tires have become the priority in this race. How, of course, Muscarella was able to take the race lead, how Stepien moved up in front, how Stephen Harlow was able to take away his charge for the top spot after a long and grueling battle with his teammate. Spinner, turn 4. Bacalhau in trouble. Caution flag out. 83 to go. And once again, it's the Florida native as Walden nearly got into him. Second time the caution comes out for Bacalhau, and there is heavy left front suspension damage on the Celsius Heat Toyota, and that will be a saving grace for Alex Muscarella, who could not fall a lap down in that run and will be able to get right back in the thick of it with his teammates and the rest of the field. Let's get a second look at how it all unfolded. Bacalhau by himself. We saw him hit the wall and spin off of turn 2 on the last bringing of the yellow. And this time it's the opposite end of the speedway, a hard hit. And that's a difficult place to hit the wall. That is a square touch. There's Dana Shepard getting around. Garrett Walden nearly stuffing into the mix as Bacalhau was trying to get back going. And a hard hit for Bacalhau will send him out of tonight's race here in the World 600K. Get a look from Walden. This was just a little too close for comfort. Take a look. Sees the car, and just barely scrapes through the hole in the wall. Garrett Walden getting by and escapes near calamity, although he did pick up some damage on the front end. And with just about 80 laps to go, the drivers are hitting pit road on a very particular part of the window. Remember, we talked about if they went green the rest of the way, they could pit one more time and the race would be done. Now, at this portion of the window, if you do pit now, you can only go up to maybe 10 laps to go in this race. So while it is a crucial pit stop, it may not be the final one we see tonight. Wholesale service. Everyone is in. Hunter grabs his box first. Jack's up on the right side, waiting for the other side of the car to come around. It's 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles for a majority of the field. Quick getaway for Jaden Porter, but it's not enough to take the lead. Cedric Hunter back in front. Porter, Harlow, Stepien, Keith, the top 5. Cedric Hunter wins the race off of the lane, and after a monstrous most recent run, the Canadian will have a chance to bring the field under proceedings once again through the Echo Park Automotive Restart Zone here from Charlotte. So let's bring in Francisco Bacalhau, bringing out the most recent caution flag tonight. And Francisco, we saw you get loosed in one of our most recent yellows from turn 2. You were able to save it. What happened there from the car's perspective off turn 4?
I wish I could tell you, Kenneth, this car has just been unpredictable all night, especially after the first pit stops. I don't know.
You felt to get unraveled. Car hit the outside wall, probably in the most awkward spot where you picked up that suspension damage. What does it look like there on pit road, and is it too much damage to continue in this race?
Yeah, this terrible car says it's too much damage. I'm done off of that impact, so appreciate that. These cars are so fragile that a little touch like that can ruin one's race, and harder impacts can probably still have you in contention to win.
Well, Francisco, it's a tough break. Hopefully you can join us sometime soon in the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, but Until then, we know that great run from Charlotte soiled, but hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, hopefully.
That's Francisco Bacalhau getting involved in that incident there off of turn 4 in the car. You saw the rear end step out from the far end of the corner at the top end of the speedway. That was the 24 degrees of banking here at Charlotte. But that wasn't a dealing blow when he hit it the first time. It was just when he spun around trying to save the car and then hit it square on that kink in the quad oval. We see that become a very dangerous point of contact when a car hits it at the right angle at the right speed. You can think back to the 1992 All-Star race, the first time the Winston was ran here at Charlotte under the lights. It was a brand new experiment to install lights here at Charlotte. It was Davey Allison coming across the line, got spun around, coming to the checkered flag, and got knocked out unconscious from a hit exactly like Bacalhau's, a square hit to one of the quad oval kinks. It was the one after the start-finish line that Allison hit. It's the first one that Bacalhau hits to take him out of contention tonight. So it's Cedric Hunter and Jaden Porter. Green flag restart and a beautiful getaway for Hunter. Porter tries to match the speed but can't quite get up to Song in enough time. Harlow makes the move inside for second, turn 1. Harlow remains down there. Porter trying to clear. And Porter does for the most part. Steven Stemping rolls back and forth. Warren Kyle Keith has been stalking this top 5 for a good majority of this last run. But now, do you play it safe or do you run the tank dry? Jaden Porter wants more than just a runner-up position. Trying to cross over Cedric Hunter on the back straightaway. Cannot get within a car length and throwing it into the corner the last time by. Lunging underneath is Jesse Whittington in the fight for 7th place. And behind them, Kip Easley, Justin Erb battle for position inside the top 12. Fascinating to watch the way these drivers handle Charlotte after this race has gone so long. And inside 77 laps to go. As we've mentioned, a potential one-stopper left in this race, whether it be a short pit or not. And the only saving grace to even out this field at a certain marker of the window would be a yellow flag coming out. But if this race stays green for the rest of its proceeding, well, we've got a fun one in store that could result in a lot of saving fuel until the end. On board with Stepien, watching onward as his teammate handles third and his rivals match for the race lead. Porter trying to catch up to Hunter, still can't quite do it, and the cars remain nose to tail for the top spot. Hearing the throttle breathe off the corner. And the drivers doing whatever they can in their power to step in forward. Battle between teammates. How about a trio of them? Turn 3. Swavely out in front, stepping in through. Warren Kyle Keith on the bottom, trying to play defense on his teammate, Justin Erb. And what a drive and a comeback for Justin Erb tonight. A driver who ran in the race lead at Auto Club Speedway from the front row several weeks back. Ended up not involved in the battle for the lead as Stempien got through and just pulled away to his heart's content. But someone who, like Warren Kyle Keith, led some laps at Texas Motor Speedway and overall has performed, put up a solid body of work at these mile-and-a-half tracks. Justin Erb now pushing forward and really great run off turn 4, taking a look on his teammate Richard Swavely, opening the door there in the quad oval, and the two friends will go at it back to turn 1. Justin Erb, the driver out of West Allis, Wisconsin. Part of what used to be a TOW racing team and now is expanded into the SKM group, one of the higher profile teams in this series alongside the DTH Cup driving team. And a driver in his late 20s trying to still make an imprint and grab his first career DTH Cup win. It's been a long while since Erb has been able to be successful in this series, but a very solid opening part to this run. And this Sicilian defense from Brandon Banks and Steven Stempien so far has allowed them to continue their positions in the back half of the top 5, but can Erb break through the wall as the top 2 have pulled away to the tune of nearly a full second over Stephen Harlow, who has maintained his staying position in third. And Jaden Porter has just hounded the rear bumper of Cedric Hunter. No longer is he going to take no for an answer in the fight for the lead. Got put near the wall there on the exit of turn 4, stays within a car length, and drives up the high side of the 24 degrees of banking. He wants the crossover on the back straightaway. Can he get the nose to the quarter panel? He can't, but he's got the run to build it up. Peek to the inside. Porter wants more. Porter for the lead. And just nudged into turn 3. New race leader from Charlotte. Porter's got control in the World 600K. And now Hunter fights back. We've seen that high side become the most dominant line of the night. Is it going to be the same this time around? It's Hunter that prevails. Mid-back straightaway. Door-to-door contact. They hip check off into the corner. And this looks exactly like the All-Star race last week. Except not a pair of Chevrolets, just a Toyota on the high side, and a bobble by Porter gets Hunter back in control. So Hunter remains back in control. Jaden Porter watches why in second place. Stephen Harlow maintains third. Steven Stempian back in fourth. And it's Brandon Banks who repaired all of his damaged car from the suspension side. He has recuperated to the top 5. But again, we mentioned that pressure from behind. Justin Erb still looking, still peeking a chance to get through. But Banks is making sure that doesn't happen, just trying to deal some of that dirty air, as we've seen the drivers strategically do tonight. And that has become the name of the game here at Charlotte, which, unlike a lot of other tracks, feels more narrow in the overall scope of intermediate racetracks. We talk about some of those intermediates we have visited this season. Las Vegas feels a lot more wide open and just generally feels like you have more space to operate in that window. From multiple lanes in the corners to the straightaways, you feel like you have a lot more space. And even on the front straightaway where you have that apron and the asphalt underneath the white line that you can still go under in passes for position or just to cut down overall lap time. Kansas will be the same next Sunday, as we'll see in this back-to-back stretch of intermediate racetracks. We saw from even Texas Motor Speedway how wide the drivers got in turns 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, not afraid to go way up to the outside wall, where there felt like there was a lot more real estate. While everything is normally bigger in Texas, we see it a lot of cookie-cutter mile-and-a-halves. There's a fundamental feeling of space that you have available to you. Charlotte is a very different story. More often than not, drivers will tell you that Charlotte feels a lot more narrow as a result. It feels more confined when you come across turns 3 and 4. You feel like in turns 3 and 4 at a lot of other mile-and-a-halves, so you can carry more speed. But here at Charlotte, it feels like you have to whoa the car a lot more just to get it turned into the corner. And a lot can feel the same way in that sense for turns 1 and 2, although that does feel like more of a breath of fresh air, similar to what we see at those other intermediate tracks. But it's a fundamental part of Charlotte Motor Speedway that just continues to create these very different driving styles. And in other words, driving, of course, at the limit and making sure you can deal with some turbulent air to falter the handling aspects of the cars that run in your wake. Saw Brandon Banks make that move in position for fourth, and now eyeing down on the DTH car of Stephen Harlow, who runs his Chevrolet in third. And we saw those top two get away, have a breath of elbow room right in front of the rest of the top 3. Well, ever since Porter had his attempt to get around Cedric Hunter, Hunter has pulled away to the tune of nearly 0.4 of a second, and now Porter is starting to feel the wrath of the 6, the 5, the 88, all these cars at the back half of the top 5, and even a bit of that top 10 that can slowly sprinkle their way back into contention on these older set of Goodyear Eagles, with a reminder that there is still a possible final chance for pit road for all these drivers by the checkered flag. How about this 3-way fight for ninth? David Duran running ahead. Kip Easley, Alex Muscarella battle for position. What a recovery drive for Muscarella. Big time scare off of turn 4. Got sent around sideways, spun around at the quad oval, didn't pick up any damage. But that car slow to get up. Didn't fall a lap down, so didn't get the grace of the lucky dog. But even if he did, would have been right back on the lead lap with his teammates and the rest of this field. Came down pit road, a solid 34-second stop to assess the damage on his car, and got right back to work. And this comeback drive is solidifying itself. Could be a top 10 for some decent points for Muscarella, as he hounds on the rear bumper of David Duran. Coming to our final 60 laps to go here from Concord, North Carolina, as we continue tonight's race from Charlotte Motor Speedway on the KBueno Racing Network. Why don't we turn up the sounds and crank it up here from Charlotte? Nothing quite like racing under the lights here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, America's home for racing. And many could say this is the home for NASCAR. All of the teams based here in North Carolina. And a lot of these drivers getting to work in possibly the gruelingest part of this race on the old set of tires with one pit stop to go and 52 laps. Separating a driver from dropping the Hammah Cup Series win in the second longest race of the year. We mentioned Crown Jewel, that phrase so synonymous with tracks like Charlotte, like Darlington, like Daytona. Both of our Noble 5 races for money have been at Crown Jewel locations. Our first race of the season at Daytona and our first paying race here in Concord, North Carolina. This track known for its Coca-Cola 600, the longest race in the NASCAR Cup Series calendar. And we'll be 100 laps shy of that in the finale later on this season for 300 laps. But of course, like we've talked about, still so much to write and still so much to answer. In this final run, understanding a final pit stop could be on the cards. Just for reference, the drivers have come across to the line. They have completed lap 30 of their stint. With 51 laps to go, that means the drivers can run 81 laps. That is the desired number. However, longest run we saw when we encountered green flag pit stops, only 71 laps. Justin Erb nearly went that distance. Warren Kyle Keith went around that distance, but no more could they handle the fuel on their race cars before the tank ran dry. So you ask yourself this, if you're a driver in this stretch of the race and you've got good track position with you, do you encounter an early pit stop, or do you save fuel now? Even if you've got 1/10 of a second gap, 2/10 of a second gap back to the driver behind, do you risk saving some fuel at this part of the run if you understand there's a possibility you can squeeze by and make it later? Remember, we do have the opportunity at overtime to inflict on this race as Stephen Harlow makes a move on the inside for second in turn 1 and tries to nudge Porter up the speedway. Can't quite deny the comeback effort, and Porter maintains staying pressure on the outside. In this run for the runner-up spot, we did see a car come down pit road, this time by, and it was Jesse Whittington. We can confirm car number 94 has come in for a stop. Sammy Harrell also visited pit lane on a 15.2 second stop. So those drivers confident now that they can squeeze in a run to the end of this race. The question is, does anyone else bite in this top 10? Here comes Brandon Banks, nose on the inside, turn 3. Chance to grab 4th, and he does. And despite early inklings that Brandon Banks with suspension damage would not weave his way back into the top 10, well, seemingly he has proven that thought completely irrelevant, as the driver who now is the only one in this Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series field to have finished every single race 7th or better, now looks to continue that streak and, most importantly, keep pulling away from his rival and second place in the standings driver, Jaden Porter, who's now just a few car lengths up the road after giving away second and now runs in the clutches of third, with a chance for the Valvoline Chevrolet to step out in front with this final green flag run up upon the field. And to think Banks' worst finish, which was 7th, we mentioned that, only came at a super speedway. He had won the first super speedway race at Daytona. That is what basically kicked off Banks' stop at the front of the point standings for a majority of the season, which he hasn't let go yet. But that 7th place effort, you think at a super speedway at Echo Park, such an unpredictable track, a newer venue still to the NASCAR Cup Series community, and even drivers on iRacing still getting used to the way it drives, that for Brandon Banks, that could be the weak spot. That could be the mulligan. So far, that has not been the case. And even though he crashed coming to the start-finish line like the whole field did on that white flag lap, he was still able to come away with a top 10. Just shows you how impressive the season has been for Banks so far, and just how impressive it has continued to remain even in this challenge. The second longest race of the season. Got to keep your head locked in for 250 laps and 375 miles. And he has done exactly that, with a chance now to gain even more before this is all said and done. There's a car stopped, nearly slowing down on the bottom of the racetrack, 15th place. And it's trouble for Charles Van Schaik. The Go Racing diecast Ford Mustang seemingly found trouble somewhere. Oh, and it was off of turn 4, contact with Jesse Whittington. So remember, we mentioned Whittington had come down pit road a few laps shy. Van Schaik was sideways, got into the 94, and goes right into the wall, exactly where Bacalhau had found trouble to bring out our most recent caution of the race. And you see that suspension lined up to the right side. That is heavy damage for Van Schaik. He's able to keep it collected. We stay green with 43 laps to go, but that car is destined to come down pit road and repair the car. But coming down pit road are the lead lap cars in the top 10. And it starts with Stephen Harlow, the first driver in, at lap 209. And Richard Swaveley now the second. Coming in, just taking a breather behind the wheel of his sim rig, just trying to get everything together as the 4 tires go on the race car. Now bolted, new stop, Brandon Banks. He is in this time by with 41 laps to go. And again, all the drivers can now make it on one green flag stop. It's just now a pointing question as to when do you come in. Race leader Cedric Hunter ahead by a second and a half. And unlike Francisco Bacalhau, he is staying long until now. Hop of the brakes. He crosses the yellow line. He locks up the right front, but he saves it. Stays in front. He's on pit road, and he's followed in by Jaden Porter. So the Kentucky native follows through, ends up on pit lane, and Steven Stepien in turn will take the race lead from Charlotte Motor Speedway, but his right hand extends. He knows he's coming in this time by. And a driver who has led a few laps here from Charlotte, now hopping on the brakes, carrying the speed, downshift, trying to get into that pit lane entry, and does so on a nice curve into the pit road axis. As Stepien comes in, he visits pit road, and Justin Erb will take the lead for the first time, now second time tonight, here from Charlotte Motor Speedway. Remember, we saw him take the lead earlier on tonight. Warren Kyle Keith had been one of the few that stayed out on pit road with him, but it's a very different story this time around. The teammates split the strategy. Keith is trying to unlap himself now after just coming in for service on what is a 4-tire stop at a 14.2-second trip. And Erb will take the lead. Durand in second, Muscarella, and now Kip Easley will be some of those last few drivers alongside Warren Kyle Keith. Actually, they did have a stop to wait for them. So Keith, this is actually him going a lap down on the racetrack. He did not come down pit road. So we are getting word that Keith is still staying out. So that means at the moment, top 6 have remained out on the racetrack for a little while, at least over 10 laps. And it's Jesse Whittington, the most recent driver on pit road on what is now 13-lap-old Goodyear Eagles on the shortest stop of them all. But again, still in that window to make it to the checkered flag comfortably. So that does hand over the net race lead to Jaden Porter on a 2-second advantage over Cedric Hunter. Remember, those two cars had came down pit road at the right time. Same situation for both of them. Only difference, Porter took 2 fresh Goodyear Eagles and Hunter took 4. That is the only, apart from Jesse Whittington, the only 2-tire call that we have seen from the drivers in the front group. As Kip Easley has visited pit road, he will give away his spot. Justin Erb remains in the lead, and Porter thinks 2 tires is more than enough to get him to the finish line on enough grip. Justin Erb in the race lead. Lots still to be decided here from beautiful Concord, North Carolina. You're tuned in with us for the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series and our 8th race of the 2026 season from Concord, North Carolina. We'll take another side-by-side break, but you won't miss any of the action of the World 600K.
Baby hits 88 miles per hour. You're gonna see some serious...
They say rap's king. They wanna know how I feel and even when I was close to defeat, I rose to my feet. Taking my time to perfect the beat, and I still got love in the streets.
Welcome to the Thousand Islands Cruette in Clayton, New York. We're open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Come in for a tasting and our helpful and knowledgeable staff will help you find the perfect olive oils or vinegars to add that perfect touch to your next meal. We have monthly specials and sales, as well as new pairings and recipes, so there's always something new to try when you visit. The Thousand Islands Cruette on James Street in Clayton. And don't forget, hey, no touchy the tankies.
Let's go. What's up? Yo, what's up, Kenneth? What's going on, man? How are you? Good. How you been? What you got in the bag, man?
I got a panini. I have a hoagie. I got it all through the Wallet Rewards app.
You can order it all through the app?
You can order it all through the app.
I can order it all through the app. The world is my oyster. By placing your order on the Wawa app, you can pick up at any time with ultimate satisfaction. Gotta have a Wawa. Welcome back to coverage of race number 8 in the 2026 Droppin the Hammah Cup Series season and the World 600K. Here from Charlotte, Kenneth Bueno with you on the broadcast booth side of things, giving you all of the storylines where with 30 laps to go, we've got multi-strategies in play. Alex Muscarella is the current race leader, out on what is 51-lap old tires. Him and Warren Kyle Keith have extended their stay, but they have been saving fuel and just maintaining position at the front. Among those of the leader drivers that have come down pit road, Jaden Porter decided he took 2 fresh Goodyear Eagles instead of 4. That gave him the proverbial race lead over Cedric Hunter. However, that gap is starting to decrease. What was at first more than a second and a half, now under 0.3 of a second between the 82 and the 45. So this is destined to become an all-out showdown for the end. Porter trying to get $75 total from last week's All-Star win and a win tonight, including the Noble 5 crown, in which he would get the $50 for being the highest finisher among that set of drivers, while Cedric Hunter searches for win number 3. In this 2026 season and his 4th career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series race win, Alex Muscarella about 25 seconds clear. He's maintained his spot at the front. He feels he can go much longer. And it is radio silence entering turn 1. He is saving fuel. Remember, we saw a similar strategy play be used by Warren Kyle Keith. He went nearly 70 full green flag laps on his tank of gas before eventually not having enough to secure the rest of the run, so he eventually came in. But that was at a point of the race where it did not count the win in hand. It was not the last leg of the race. There was still a lot to be decided, and even if he had pitted earlier on in the run, he could have easily regained track position and still be okay for the most part. Now Muscarella is talking about a risk being taken in order to win this race. And if it can happen, it would be his first career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series win, although the gap is shrinking for the race lead. And we've also talked about overcuts being very prominent for success. If you can stay out longer than the rest of the drivers behind you that come down pit road, you'll in turn have the freshest rubber. And even if you have a bit of a track position loss from that pit stop, you can still rally your way through. And at most tracks, including these 1.5 miles where the tires wear out considerably, if you do have that overcut strategy, you'll have the fresh tires, bolt them on, you've got a faster race car, and for the most part, you can still get around the slower traffic that has the older set of tires when you get the full heat cycle together. Now, the situation here for the likes of Alex Muscarella is that if he stays out long enough, the gap naturally in tire difference is going to continue to decrease. Porter is going to eventually get to under 20 seconds of a deficit to the race leader, and if Muscarella extends his stay longer than he needs to, and he cannot make it into the end of this race on fuel, when he eventually does come down pit road, if that is the choice for the 48 car, then eventually he loses more time in the process. We've also seen how staying out longer can still be a blessing and a curse in a sense. That is if you hit the right sweet spot of when to come in. To make that decision, all these strategy plays coming into effect. It is saving fuel at the front versus 2 tires in second versus 4 tires in third and fourth. And then there's also a 2-tire call that holds on to 6th. And Jesse Whittington trying to become another driver to enter the top 10 and finish that way there. But it's been a solid race for the 94 tonight, and just holding on to the 2 fresh tires that he bolted on to his M-Works Big Fish Barbecue Chevrolet. Coming into 21 laps to go. The gap is tight. The gap grows, though, for the race lead, as it's 0.4 of a second. Porter now stepping away on the 2 fresh tires. And how many times have we seen at these intermediate tracks where 2 tires seem to hold on in this next-gen era? We've talked about drivers like Steven Maggio, who is a good friend of Jaden Porter. Those two have a lot of respect for each other on the track, and they race each other every single Wednesday. And they race each other here on Sundays in the first season of the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series. Steven Maggio is known to have 2 fresh tires on his car anytime you get within this marker of the race where it really matters most. And 98% of the time, he's able to make it work. He's able to stay in front, have the grip necessary, use the turbulent air to his advantage. And even if a car behind him can stay within 3 to 4 of a second, if he can keep them plateaued at that gap, that is more than enough to sustain a race victory. And the great tune for Jaden Porter is that he is pulling away. Cedric Hunter has tried to push this race car, and while he was a hair faster than Jaden Porter, we understand here at Charlotte, it's one thing to catch, it is another to get around for position. Was that onboard look from Porter just showing you the difference in gaps between those two, and like we mentioned, Porter has now eclipsed under 20 seconds from the race leader in Muscarella, who now steps into lap number 62. With 20 laps to go, it is going to be a far cry, and it's going to be a steep mountain to climb if Muscarella wants to stay ahead. The only saving grace for the 48 car is if we get a yellow flag to break up the action. And, you know, we've talked about commentators' jinxes now and then. Maybe I let that out in the universe, but we'll just keep an eye on what happens for the rest of this race. There's a look at David Duran running in the top 12, and Christian McCrelly a few car lengths behind inside the top 15. What a drive for Christian McCrelly. Was one of the first drivers not to set a qualifying time in the session earlier on before the green flag, but the EP Lab Chevrolet, a driver who hails from the country of Italy, trying to snag a top 15 at the end of this one. Alex Muscarella now getting around with some of those cars that are technically a lap behind. McCrelly now being the technically lucky dog spot. As we've come around to 18 laps to go, Van Schijk coming through. That's a driver that is 16 laps behind the race leader in 21st. We noted that hard hit to the outside wall off of contact from the nose of Jesse Whittington, and that did not bring out a yellow. He has stayed out since, but spent 7 minutes on pit road on his last pit stop 11 laps ago, just trying to repair his Ford Mustang. Dark Horse inside goes McCrelly, and the 75 car will unlap himself this time through. Battle for the net race lead is back on, as Cedric Hunter has regained all that lost time to car number 82 and is now proposing a proper challenge for what is still net position number 1. Alex Muscarella remains in the lead, but will this last longer for the 48, and will this become a boiling point for the 45 of Hunter? Peeks underneath 1, he commits to the line in 1, carries through the blue and white line. Porter tries to defend up high, and it's still side by side off the corner. Remember, multi-wins at stake. We've seen a few different winners capture Droppin the Hammah victory lane. Hunter's been very familiar with it in 2026. Jaden Porter trying for his first breath since Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And now the change for the lead happens. Muscarella comes down pit road with 15 laps to go. And now this is the battle for the win. Hunter back to the inside. Porter's in the wall. Snags him some speed. Hunter's got the position off turn 4. And Cedric Hunter to the point from Charlotte. What a night it has been for Cedric Hunter to have qualified where he did, to have come down pit road as many times as he did as well. to think of moments exactly like this, and while the yellow flags came out at perfect times to be on level playing field with the rest of the group, he has become the fastest car on the long run, and on 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles on the last stop, gets by the 2-tire mayhem. As Jaden Porter gave it his all to stay in the race lead, but it may not be enough. 12 laps to go from Charlotte Motor Speedway in the World 600K, and this marathon could be settled with Cedric Hunter in the race lead. And this will be his first qualifying effort into the top 10 since his pole position back in mid-March at the Echo Park Speedway, in which he had to leave early. But through his last 3, even with the win in late March at the Texas Motor Speedway, all of them have come from finishes, or starts rather, 10th or worse. And all of them were finishes inside the top 2. Warren Kyle Keith, there you watch his number 24. He is going to fall a lap down back in 19th. As his strategy play goes awry, Hunter moves on by. Porter through as well, 2/10 back. And it's still far from over here from Charlotte. But Cedric Hunter hoping this is the last goodbye he can send to that 82 car before the checkered flag falls here tonight. There's David Duran trying to peek in on Kip Easley. Charles Van Schaik making the move up high, and Duran, after a pretty strong run tonight, can still get a top 10 at the end of it all through the long green flag run. Still settling back in 11th as Easley has taken the position, and Van Schaik just made an imprint there on the battle for the spot as he was able to step on through. And we continue on green flag racing on what has been an overall separated field, almost giving off what happened at Auto Club Speedway not that long ago. Our last points-paying race was a flag-to-flag affair, and while Steven Stemping was able to step ahead in strategy, it was all about drivers separating, getting away from each other, stepping into their own rhythm, muscle memory at these types of tracks. And this could be either the muscle memory zone or the overthinking zone for a lot of drivers when they're all by themselves, when they don't have a driver to face against, or maybe reference lap times off of. They just think about every little detail that goes into putting a lap together here at Charlotte, and that could very well, like we've seen before tonight, result in a few mistakes. Those few mistakes can pile on over the run, and not only will it be lost time, but a potential yellow flag that could fly from just a single car spinning. Hunter hoping at this point that is not the case, and he can roll the next 6.5 laps without any pressure from behind or any race-altering yellow flag. But the precedent was set from Jaden Porter, just trying to gain track position. If you want to stay ahead, why not? Take 2 fresh Goodyear Eagles, and even though Porter did not get the best of Hunter through the end of this run, he is still not far behind. 3/10 separate the race leaders, and Porter is still the faster car. Even though he's in dirty air, he's maintained the draft, he is stabilized in speed, and while the drivers have hit the cliff point on the tires, some fall-offs are worse than others. Perhaps did Cedric Hunter use too much of his tires, trying to sling around Porter for the lead, and does this 82 car have one last breath of life in him? Driver from Louisville, Kentucky in his early 20s, trying to ignite that Carson Hocevar mentality. It is all or nothing. And trying to take this Ride the Dente car to victory lane, just like Hocevar did earlier this afternoon from Talladega Superspeedway for his first NASCAR Cup Series win. Porter trying to make sure he can make Carson Hocevar proud, if you will, but he lost time there off turn 4. It is half a second between the 2 leaders with 4 laps to go at the stripe. You watch the battle for 7th place on the racetrack. Justin Urban, Steven Stempien, Ford Mustang and Chevrolet. Stepien, a strong night, leading some laps here from Charlotte, but falling back through the cusps of the top 10 later on in this run. Point the inside, and Herb still holding on his defensive stance. It'll be 3 laps to go from Charlotte this time through. The gap has grown, ballooned half a second plus some, 7/10, 8/10, and dropping. Battle for the No Bull 5 could be very interesting in the final few laps. Here comes Banks, dialing up the bottom, nose ahead, can't plant the throttle. Porter waves up high. He's got a chance to defend. He's into the outside wall, and the battle for the $50 is on with a pair of laps to go. Banks maintaining the inside. Can Porter hang on for the $50? And Porter plays the defense. Porter breaks through, but up in front, it's a long run up to Cedric Hunter. White flag in the World 600K from Charlotte. It has been a wildly successful season for Cedric Hunter. Average finish of 1.5 in his last 2 points-paying Drop in the Hammah Cup Series starts, and that average finish is going to go up once again. A trifecta in 2026. Cedric Hunter wins the World 600K. And after all is said and done, Jaden Porter takes away second and is the No Bull 5 $50 winner. Jaden Porter just nosing ahead of Brandon Banks for second. And what a run for the 82 car. But Cedric Hunter, for the 3rd time this season, for the 4th time in his career, and for the 2nd time here from Charlotte, burns it down. Cedric Hunter will see Drop in the Hammah victory lane in a hat trick in 2026. And we talk about the No Bull 5 storyline tonight. Chance at $50 for Indianapolis. Hunter will be one of those 5, alongside Jaden Porter, Brandon Banks, Richard Swavely, and Jesse Whittington. But a Polish victory lap for the Canadian on what has been a fiery spring stretch for this 45 car. Riding the same number font as a driver who's also won a ton in 2026 in Tyler Reddick. And Cedric Hunter, his 3rd victory of the season, and his 2nd at a mile and a half, his 2nd at Charlotte. A place where his first career victory came in a last-ditch restart, where he had to pull away from the field, take advantage in strategy, and now Hunter can enjoy this one. His 4th career dub coming from Charlotte, North Carolina, and the Queen City crowns a new winner. So as Cedric Hunter continues his celebrations here from Concord, North Carolina, let's get a look at the unofficial results after this race is all said and done in our 2nd longest affair of this 2026 season. Cedric Hunter the winner for the 3rd time in this year. He's had a wildly successful campaign, and like we mentioned, average finish of 1.5 through his last 2 starts, and surely going to be even better of a mark by the time we go into Kansas next week. Jaden Porter, one of our Red Banner No Bull 5 drivers, just barely ekes out 2nd place ahead of Brandon Banks in our top 3. We'll talk to all 3 of them before we close out our race tonight here on the KBueno Racing Network. Richard Swavely back and forth. What a drive for the 32 car. Jesse Whittington as well on just a 2-tire call like Jaden, able to snag a top 5 at the end. Justin Erb in the top 6. Steven Stepien to come home 7th. His teammate Stephen Harlow back in 8th. How about a first career top 10 in his first race? Ethan Thompson, what a drive for the 99, ends up in 9th. And Kip Easley for the Drinkin' Bros Racing team rounds out tonight's top 10. David Duran had a solid car to start, fell back to 11th in that final run with Christian McCrelly back in top 12. Alex Muscarella ends up 13th on a comeback drive with Dana Shepard in his first start, top 14 for him in his number 44 car. Chuck Stevens ends up rounding out the top 15. Garrett Walden, Casey Knighton, the final two on the lead lap. Ray Rogers, the first one behind the leaders in 2 laps down, 18th. Sammy Harrell, 4 laps down in 19th. And a poor ending to Warren Kyle Keith's tenure here at Charlotte. He ends up rounding out the top 20, 6 laps down. Final 4 include Charles Van Scheidt, 15 laps behind the mark. Brad Fulham, 22nd. Timothy Stubblefield in 23rd. And after a hard hit to the quad oval outside wall, that was the end of the race for Francisco Bacallao, who rounds out our 24-car field here from Charlotte, North Carolina. Let's get a moment to visit Droppin the Hammah Victory Lane, where we are joined for the 3rd time this season by Cedric Hunter. Welcome into our KBRN post-race show, and it is elation to the highest regard for Cedric Hunter. Cedric, you picked up your first career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series win right here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. I know it came under more stressful circumstances. This time it was a lot more calm of an approach. What are the emotions after the win tonight?
Yeah, man, I'm super pumped. I love this track, and I told you last week after my interview that I was calling my shot and I was going to win tonight, and I'm glad I didn't make a fool of myself and actually came through with it. So, great race. Honestly, the first half I was really struggling. I just couldn't get focused, and I kept making mistakes, basically spinning myself out at the beginning of the race, and then missing pit road cost me so much time, and we slowly got through the field, and I was kind of nervous there at the end. I'm not gonna lie. When Jane took 2, I was kind of like happy with it. I figured, all right, like he'll have speed for the 15 or so laps, and then he'll fall off, and then he just never really fell off. So it got me really worried there when I was behind him with like 20 laps to go and 5/10 back, and then I think that and he was doing a good job of giving me kind of dirty air, and then he started running the middle and giving me a clean air on the bottom, and I think that definitely helped me. So, but really good race to him. I think he was kind of the same boat. We both struggled and then came back. So, hell of a race. It was a lot of fun.
Cedric, let's rewind the clock and give you the perspective of that final run and how difficult it's been to pass here at Charlotte. We noted a lot of drivers talking about heavy understeer with the dirty air, and even with the new power increase from 670 to 737. What did you feel behind the wheel, and how did you finagle your way around that phenomenon of understeer that a lot of drivers were feeling tonight?
Yeah, I was pretty loose actually tonight. I think it was just the way I was driving the corner. I was really trying to back up my center and then be really aggressive with the throttle for the exit, as long as the car could handle, just going flat out. So couple times tonight, especially coming off 4, I really got sideways and was close to kind of ending my own race. But I'll say that the battle with Jane there at the end was definitely the hardest pass tonight. A lot of guys obviously were running the middle, and at the beginning of the race, the top, and not too many guys were or at least in front of me, were running the bottom. So for the most part, I had clean air. So it wasn't too bad to pass people, but man, that last pass was, I had to give it my all. So again, kudos to him. Banks also had a big comeback. I think he had damage earlier in the race, and I was surprised to see him there on the last run, 4/10 behind me when I'm trying to run Jane down too. So they both gave me a run for my money. Great racing from them as always.
Cedric, we've mentioned the average finish 1.5. That is impressive stuff over the last 2 points-paying starts. Of course, we're not counting the All-Star race in this. But to have this win fresh off the All-Star break and going into another 1.5 miles and 3 wins already this season, what does that say for your confidence and momentum as the regular season continues and trying to become one of those favorites for the title?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, even the races where I feel like I didn't really have that much speed, I still, came through. I'm thinking Auto Club, for the first 3 quarters of the race, I was really just not there on pace. I was pretty much a 10th-ish place driver. And then just with strategy and everything, kind of found my way to finish second. And that's kind of been, for the most part, just how the season's gone for me. Out of all the races I actually ran, and didn't just do Starn Parks. I think my worst finish is like 4th or 3rd or something like that. So, and it's not like I had speed or, top 3 speed at some of those tracks. I just so happened to, play, I guess, stuff falls onto my lap, and I got fortunate with good finishes. So, when you don't always have the speed, but you're able to get good finishes, it's obviously a huge boost of uh, self-esteem. So we'll just keep doing, I guess, what we're doing. So far it's working, and hopefully we can keep stacking these points for the chase.
The flame has been rekindled, and now it's burning as big as ever. Cedric, a big-time win here in the World 600K, our second longest race of the season. Before we let you bounce and drop in the Hammah victory lane, anybody you want to give a shout-out to or thank for the run?
Yeah, man. Same thing as every week. Huge shout-out to the admins for putting a great league together. I know they put in a lot of work. I've been in their shoes before, so it's not an easy job, so I appreciate everything they do. Shout out to all the drivers for the great racing as always. You for doing a great job, and I think you're solo tonight, so yeah, hell of a job, man. And shout out to my beautiful wife, everybody for tuning in, and Zach also for giving me a little pep talk there on the last run there.
Well, the words are very much appreciated, and on behalf of all of us here at the KBueno Racing Network, congratulations on an outlasting win here in the World 600K. Go on and celebrate, and we'll see you in the field next week at Kansas.
I appreciate it, man. Have a good night.
That is Cedric Hunter, victorious for just the 3rd time this season, continuing to etch himself at the top of the leaderboard for the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series point standings. We're now joined by the driver who was the winner here last week, and we get to talk to him. We get to talk to him again here from Charlotte Motor Speedway at the World 600K. Jaden Porter joins us now. Jaden, what a drive at the end, and I almost had a feeling that someone was going to try something other than 4 tires on the final stop, and I knew it had to be you. 2 tires on that final run. You're beating Brandon Banks there, those fighting for second in the final few laps, but Cedric Hunter getting around you there. What'd you see in that final run, and how did the car feel?
It felt fine, honestly. It felt a lot better than I thought it was going to feel. My left side, when I pitted, I came out there like 70%, so I thought I was in a pretty good spot. And I knew Cedric was going to gain on me, but I thought I definitely had enough to defend. I made a poor line choice in 3 and 4 when he got next to me entering 3. I should have ran in the middle. I would have been able to clear him off turn 4 and been fine. Maybe be able to air block the rest of the race. And I decided to try to run the top to get more of a gap. And when I did that, I just drove it in way too deep and hit the wall. I'm really bad running the wall at Charlotte for some reason. So it's unfortunate. Glad I was able to finish the highest in a Noble. I thought the rules was like finish the highest out of the Noble guys and you get the $50 and not win. Maybe I would have ran a little harder for the win, realizing that. In my opinion, it's a little silly, but it's not my rules. But happy to come away second. The first stint of the race was completely awful for me. I made a mistake and got into Harlow and was running like last place on pace because my tires were killed, and then we got that caution and able to drive through the field and contend for the win. So pretty up and down night, but happy to finish second.
We move on through the schedule after tonight from Charlotte, and I'd say a pretty successful last 2 weeks at this mile-and-a-half track. You picked up the All-Star win. You got the money there. You finished runner-up in your first top 5 since Kentucky earlier on this season, which was your home track. Now we go into Kansas next week, another mile-and-a-half, and then Talladega and Michigan and Pocono. What do you see from the next few to continue that momentum high and try to take the points lead for the first time this season?
Well, I feel really good about Kansas. I've always ran well there. We just ran 4 wide there, and I ran really well when I had a clean race car. So hopefully we can have a clean race car, and I feel like we'll be able to contend for the win. If not, maybe be the favorites going into next week. Talladega's Talladega. I mean, you just pray and hope you finish in the top 5 there. I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to make Michigan. I think that's the May 31st race, and that's also Nashville week. I don't know if I'm going to Nashville completely yet. If I am, I'll miss that race. If not, I'll be at Michigan, and I usually run pretty well at Michigan. Almost won it last season in this league, so hopefully we can do that. if I do race. But I mean, I feel like I just want to kind of click off some wins. I feel like I've had some chances and let them go. So hopefully, we just start clicking off some wins here and have some points entering the chase.
Well, Jaden, a solid effort tonight in the World 600K from Charlotte. Before we let you go, on to the next race at Kansas and our 4-wide championship 5 at the Virtual Auto Club Speedway in just a few days. Anybody you want to give a shout out to for the run?
Yeah, thanks to everyone at KBueno Racing. Francisco is good to have as a teammate tonight. Thanks to Nicholas Bauman for putting this scheme together kind of last minute. He's changing the numbers on it. Chili's car has been really good luck to me. Obviously, it didn't win tonight, but it's been really good luck to me for the last week. So definitely going to try to start running it a little bit more. And I mean, who doesn't love Chili's? Chili's like the best.
That's true. That is
so,
it's a very true opinion. I wish more people agreed with that.
No, if you haven't had Chili's, you're not living. You're not living. You haven't tasted good food until you have Chili's. So thanks to everybody there. That's about it, honestly. Thanks to you for doing the broadcast. Thanks to Steven and them for hosting the league. Wish I had the $50. I thought I did, but the rules are rules, I guess, and we'll play by them, I guess.
Well, the good news is you are qualified for the next Noble 5 race at Indianapolis. So if there's any chance for the $50 to be rekindled, it's going to be there at the Rectangle in Indianapolis. But Jaden, great performance tonight, second place, and of course wishing you luck not only in this series, but we know in a few days running for the 4-wide championship at Auto Club on Wednesday. So we'll talk to you then, but otherwise, best of luck as we move into next week's race from Kansas.
Yeah, thank you, buddy.
Jaden Porter takes away second here from Charlotte Motor Speedway and did it over the points leader who continues his top 10 streak. No finish worse than 7th in 2026, and it's a third place effort for Brandon Banks here in the World 600K. Brandon, this race, it turned around for you. It was a top 5 car. We heard you had suspension damage. You had to get it fixed over a minute on pit road just to get it back settled, and you come around for third. How would you describe the way the night went for you here at Charlotte?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the first part of the race, we were just trying to, just log some laps. Really, it's such a long race. I don't know what I was thinking. I ended up getting loose off of 4 one time and just completely daydreaming and hit the wall. Got wheel damage. The car was still running okay. It was just dragging the right front, so it was killing my tire up there. So I had to be really easy with it for probably maybe 80 laps or so, I guess. We finally got it fixed there about the midway point, and I don't know, just took too long to try to get back to the front. We made some hay there on that very first green flag right after we got it fixed, and I don't know, just kind of burned the tires up a little bit trying to get through the field, and so we had to kind of sit around and and I think it was really just track position. It's Jaden and Cedric, they were 2 of the fastest cars tonight anyway. So I needed to get around them during that green flag pit stop. I thought about taking 2, but with me going in before them, I was like, well, let's take 4. If anything, maybe I can make up a second or 2 on the track. And I feel like the long run, I was okay, so they came in right after me. Jaden took 2. He got the track position, and I don't know, just used too much tire trying to get there, honestly. Probably was about a 3rd place car anyway today. It felt different than last week. I'm not sure if it was a track temp ordeal there or what, but it was a little bit more free tonight than it was last week. So I don't know. Still a good finish. I mean, like I said, we'll keep clicking off these top 3s if we can. Really just kind of building points and trying to get to the end of the season and being ready for the playoffs, really.
Well, this is Brandon Banks in chase for the cup form right now. Again, the streaks that have continued this season, the management of consistency. What has, again, been that secret sauce to stay consistent, keep this car clean, and continue to run these top 10 races that ultimately have given you now an extensive points gap at the front?
Honestly, I feel like it's just the way this league races. No stages, it's 100% fuel. It just all kind of works in the way I race. If you've watched me long enough, I'm not really this super aggressive right off the, first 20 kind of guy. So I like to just kind of settle in and just run my own race. And this just kind of works out the way I like to race. And I think that's really what it kind of boils down to. Jaden's kind of similar. I think that's why you see him up there with me in points as well. I think he's just had one or two bobbles this season that's dropped him from being right there with me. So it's still not over. We got a really long season. We're, like I said last week, we're just gonna try to click off the points on the races that we know we're good at. There's some that we're not going to be so good at coming up here, and we're just gonna try to keep it clean in them races. And like I said, we're focused on the playoffs at this point. I think we have a good shot of, as long as we keep doing what we're doing, I think we should be at least in the playoffs. So I don't think that's too much of a worry. But yeah, like I said, just kind of focusing and just learning a little bit more on this car, learning the way these things race with no stages. Most leagues we run in have the stages, or at least one stage here or there, and just kind of hacks the field back up. And it is what it is. So but yeah, we're just going to keep doing what we've been doing, and we'll hopefully be there at the end and be able to give them a run at the playoffs.
So one more question before we let you give the thanks to all those that made it possible. I have a feeling I have to ask you about this, because we're going to a track that you've won at before. Kansas gave you good memories at getting into the final round of the championship last season when it was a playoff affair. Now it's in the regular season. What do you see from next week, and what kind of things can you take into next week to try and go and win there again?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to be good there. It's probably one of my top 2 or 3 best tracks. I don't know. I think the biggest thing is just go in there and just qualify. Try to qualify well. Try to stay up front. I think if we can get some nice long runs in, like we've been doing here in this league. A little shaky here at the beginning of the race, but I think the rest of the race kind of played out like we've normally been running. If we can get that kind of race in, I think we're going to be pretty good next week. Like I said, probably one of our more dominant tracks. Looking forward to it. Like I said, we're going to try to clip off the ones that we know we're decent at here, or Kansas, Michigan here, things like that. And then when we go to Sonoma, we're just going to try to hold on and try not to put it in the dirt, and try not to die and finish last. We were awful at road racing. So definitely got to get with Lawson Pill and see if he can teach me a little something there. But yeah, like I said, we're gonna just kind of take one race at a time. And if think track position is going to be key next week, and like I said, we'll see what happens.
Well, Brandon, we certainly do appreciate the time and giving us your thoughts after this World 600K. Before we let you go, anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Oh man, appreciate you for sure. Awesome broadcast as usual. Dropping the Hammer for sponsoring the league, Stempian and Alex, everybody that does all the behind the scenes stuff. Appreciate those guys. DBR for sure. Kip had a decent night tonight. Track position I think was kind of with him too. He's just trying to get up there. I think he had a really fast car. And like I said, congrats to Cedric, Jaden, heck of a race, man. Everybody raced clean up front. It was a lot of fun. Just need a little bit more, so I'll take it. We're not unhappy with the top 3, so like I said, we'll go to the next week and try to give it to him again. We'll see.
Well, Brandon, probably going to give him hell in the next few weeks and stay in the points lead. We appreciate the time. Congratulations on the 3rd place finish, and we'll see you in the field at Kansas next week.
All right, Kenneth, thanks.
Brandon Banks closes out our top 3 tonight from Charlotte Motor Speedway in this World 600K. So after the 2nd longest race of the season, we move on to another 1.5 mile track, this time in America's Heartland. Kansas Speedway set to greet the drivers for race number 9 of the points-paying season. That comes their way next Sunday night on May the 3rd, 2026. Our coverage begins at around 8:30 p.m. Eastern before we kick off the race coverage here on the KBueno Racing Network YouTube channel, and we continue through the regular campaign on another super speedway race in Talladega in mid-May, Michigan, Pocono, Phoenix, and the series continues in the chase for the Cup that starts at Chicagoland in August, and of course rallying back to what will be a revisit to the Charlotte Motor Speedway in early October for the championship finale of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series, but still, of course, a long way to go. Lots of other racing to be had here on the KBueno Racing Network in the next few days, and very important ones to be matter of fact. Chase for the Cup for the KBueno Truck Series in Season 2 continues from Indianapolis Raceway Park, and IRP, the short track, will greet the Chase drivers as they continue their bid for a KBueno Truck Series Championship. That coverage begins at 8:30 p.m. Eastern right here on the KBueno Racing Network YouTube channel. And then on Wednesday night, a championship finale for the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series from Auto Club Speedway in Southern California. 5 drivers, 1 champion at the end. We hope you join us at 8 p.m. Eastern for the Thousand Islands Correct pre-race show before our race coverage begins at around 9:10 p.m. Eastern Time. Then on Thursday, we'll be racing for the regular season finale of the SAC Cup Series in their 5th season from the desert in Arizona from Phoenix Raceway. That coverage also begins at 8:30 p.m. All of those broadcasts can be found right here on the KBueno Racing Network before we come back for racing from Kansas. So after all, it is Cedric Hunter grabbing a trifecta in his Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series season, 3rd victory of the campaign and his 2nd that happens right here in America's home for racing. A huge thank you to Steven Stampian, Warren Kyle Keith, Chris Progar, and the entire wonderful admin team that helps this series run around each and every Sunday, and for everyone at the KBueno Racing Network. For Nate Polite, Eli Comerford, Mikey Neal, Charlie Byer, Keelan Belsha, our good friend Francisco Bacallao, and more, I am Kenneth Bueno signing off from Charlotte. A congratulations to Cedric Hunter on his 3rd win of the campaign. We'll see you in Kansas 1 week from tonight. But until then, good night from Concord.